So what do we think about this week's Coronation Street then? Let's find out. Was that any good? Who knows? Me, I'm going to tell you. Do you know?
I never know till I get to the end.
I think you do. I think we talked about it a bit already. Okay, so we have got 5 stories to talk about this week. Again, apologies in advance, not very far in advance, for terrible storyline titles. Maybe once we get back to normal viewing, I'll be able to spend a little bit longer ruminating on these. We're starting off with the Todd, Billy, Paul and Will story. So there was a proposal this week. Also, a character called Will. This storyline title is I Will. I will. Sorry.
Because we don't say I do in church in this country, even though...
Well, especially
on TV, everyone always asks, do you blah, blah, blah? And it's always, I do. Well, actually, the question is, will you? And you have to say, I will.
Yeah.
And also, the audience... The congregation also has to say we will as well, don't they?
They will do.
They never have that on TV, because if they did, they'd be legally married.
This wasn't a This wasn't a wedding. This is a proposal where the question was, will you marry me? And after a little bit of hesitation, Billy did indeed say, I will.
I just thought of a great one.
What?
Oh no, I need to look up whether this word means what I think it means.
You're coming up with a off-the-cuff storyline title. Right, I'm going to do the next one. Which one? I've got 2 options for the Izzy one. What do you want to do, the first one or the second one?
I think you should just say both.
Well, okay. So the Izzy storyline, we'll get to talking about it in a minute, I promise. The Izzy storyline title, my first option, when there was a mystery man in Ms. Armstrong's flat, my question was, who is he? Who is he?
Who is he?
We still don't know. Well, we know his name. We know who his name is because of the credits, but I don't think it was actually...
We know what his name is
because of the credits. I don't think it was mentioned in the programme. Or we could also say that this was a story where Izzy has had lots of work to do. She's got too much work on, isn't she? She's so overstretched, isn't she?
Yeah.
So we could call this storyline Stretched Armstrong.
That was good.
You've got to be of a certain age to get that one, maybe.
Do you want to know what my idea was that doesn't actually work?
Oh, yeah, go on then.
But it worked for Daniel.
Go on.
If somebody proposed to him. I thought the word docent was to do with clergy, but it's not.
Oh, I've never even heard this word.
Docent, it's a professor or somebody who works in a museum or... Like, I think when you go around stately homes, the people that help you are docents.
Okay, so what we'll do in the title?
Indocent proposal.
So close, we'll have to remember that one.
So close, yet completely irrelevant.
For the Ryan story, we can bring out an old classic for him because...
football.
Ryan Giggs.
Yay!
That's a footballer, isn't he? He's doing his
man.
gigs this week. I wanted to call it about something about to do with Daisy's chain. Like a daisy chain, because he is on the chain this week, but either of them will do fine. I'm just so lazy with these titles this week. Gail Away is the story about Gail leaving off to Thailand. Gail away, Gail away, Gail away. And finally, we had a little bit of Alina popping a bun in the oven on Monday's episode, at least. So this week, we had Monday, Tuesday and Friday to talk about, although obviously we have watched it on the Hub, so we're all caught up.
We already know.
Gemma?
Yes?
Will you...
I will.
Take this first storyline to synopsise, to have and to hold, to describe and dissect.
I will. I'll let you know. So on Monday, Summer is fed up with Billy and Todd being on her case about being diabetic. She's sick and tired of it, and she's only just started.
She's got this clinic appointment, isn't she? But she wants to go to the rave up on the Red Wreck.
She hurries off to school. Todd follows after her and finds her in the street telling Paul about her woes. She's in Victoria Gardens, which is now called Victoria Park. Apparently it's been promoted.
It's barely a garden, to be fair, is it? But when Ryan called it a park, I think he was definitely overselling it.
Have all the other green spaces been decimated in Weatherfield? So this is literally the biggest.
Get Spider on that if that's the case.
It will be shinning up a tree.
Or Emily, just tell her she'll be right back down from Scotland.
Yeah.
To climb up. Where does she even go? The little shelter above the bench, maybe?
Sitting in an alcove like a gargoyle.
Maybe she can be in Villain's Alley and just launch herself at anyone who comes along.
Anyway, Todd says she's moaning about we're not letting her to a party, but she didn't say why, did she? It's because she's got to go to the diabetes nurse. And Paul says, I'll go with you. So she goes into the medical centre and Paul and Todd are with her. Billy pops out. So there's 3 grown men there trying to convince this girl.
16-year-old girl.
She refuses to go. She's like, I don't want to go in. I don't want to go in. Billy turns up and she goes, all right then. And she goes in with Paul. and Todd's a bit knocked that suddenly Summer is so keen on Paul. And I really do feel a bit sorry for Summer here, because it's not her fault that Billy's a massive flake, is it?
No.
So she's a very lovely, giving, gentle girl who sort of befriends people very easily, seemingly. And she's made a big attachment to Billy's previous boyfriend, Paul. And now she's got to pretend that she doesn't care about him just because Billy's on the scene.
Yeah.
So she's very confused, and this is a really tough time for her as well, with the diabetes diagnosis and everything. So I'm not surprised that she's freaking out a little bit, because they're not really helping. And Billy's attitude all week is sort of wringing his hands and standing on the periphery of things going, oh dear, oh no.
He is a bit Dot Cottony, isn't he,
He
this week?
is. And Jesus is watching him going, oh, Billy, man, come on. Just do a prayer and get on with it.
You're the Archdeacon, Reverend Sake.
I know.
For my sake.
So she goes in, she comes out and she's like, oh, you know what? I was panicking over nothing. It all went really well. And honestly, half the time, the fear of the unknown is the worst part, isn't it?
Yes. That's like I was like before I went to have my COVID jab. And it was fine.
Were you really worrying about that?
I don't like injections.
This is, I don't get this. I know.
I don't.
I understand that some people have a phobia of needles, because I'm okay with it going in. I don't like it coming out. That's my big thing. I don't like that part.
Right.
And I've had a lot more of that than you have, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, but I don't get when anyone says, I don't like hospitals and I don't like needles. It's like, oh yeah, well, I love them. I'll have yours if you like.
I just remember my mum
Not
was having
even junkies
when
like
my mum was having a
needles.
chemotherapy, she was like, yeah, bring it on.
What was that? Wasn't chemo though, was it? Surely.
Yeah, when she was having the chemo. And she was like, find my veins, get it in there.
Maybe there's a bit of morphine in there as well. So anyway, so Billy thanks Paul for helping, and then when Summer and Billy are left alone together, she tells him she misses Paul. Oh, dear. Todd chats with Eileen about what's going on. He's starting to realise that Summer's maybe hasn't taken to him as a father figure, and he needs to prove to her that he's not going to let her down again and leave, because that's kind of what happened.
I think she has, or she had, but after he did his disappearing act in the woods all those years ago, she's not learned yet to retrust him.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Learning after a betrayal. But really, he didn't do it on purpose.
No, it's not his fault.
He just went a bit nutso.
Bruno's fault, innit? We all know.
Yeah. So Summer comes home again. Later, this party on the Red Wreck wasn't all that after
I can't
all.
believe this. After all that, I wondered whether they're going to do some filming on the Red Wreck. They've started to do some location shoots, haven't they? Is she going to have some kind of collapse on the Red Wreck? Is she going to be down in her cans? But nothing.
No, it was quite funny. Because she made a massive deal about it, and then she wasn't even bothered. And I think parents of teenagers probably find this very familiar scenario of somebody moaning about wanting to do something and then not even be bothered about it.
And the fact that she kind of lied about when the do was, didn't she? Because it didn't actually clash with her appointment after all, anyway.
Of course, we sympathise and understand this, because occasionally Abby will say, I want to go outside. We open the door and she sits there.
Yeah.
She won't go out, but
Just
she doesn't want to come in.
Windy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Windy old whiskers, that's what we call her. So, we don't call her that. We might do now, though. Then Todd's like, oh, I've got a sore knee. And I say to you, oh, I think I know what he's doing.
I didn't have a clue. I didn't know this was happening this week.
Well, I don't want to be heteronormative here, because we're talking about a gay couple, but perhaps because I'm a woman, I'm very in tune with the old man getting down on one knee thing, like, whoop, 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 alarm.
I thought he was just trying to get sympathy or something. Like, he realised that Summer was all over Paul, and if he was like, oh, I got a bad knee, Summer would come over to him and offer him some knee support or something.
So he's like, Paul, because this week he's been very
sympathy.
uncomplimentary about Paul and his mental faculties, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So do you think he was like, oh, Paul's mentally deficient, what can I be deficient in? Not mental, because I'm really clever. Oh, my knee hurts, my knee, oh, my knee. Anyway, he goes down on one knee and he says, while he's down here, I will propose. And Billy's like, oh. He's like a Muppet waving his arms around like animal. I don't know what to do. Todd gets really flustered because Billy doesn't immediately and enthusiastically agree. And as with sex, getting proposed to should be immediate and enthusiastic consent and affirmation. Otherwise, you shouldn't go ahead with it.
Somebody needs to tell Daisy that.
Yes. So Todd realises he's done the wrong thing and leaves in a bit of a huff. Summer then sees Paul in the street and tells him what's happened, and Paul doesn't like this at all, gets really grumpy. Billy goes to the funeral parlour to find Todd, but only Eileen is there, and he says, I need to speak to him, leaves, because Eileen convinced him he wasn't there, but it was a lie again. Those Grimshaws are so full of lies. As soon as Billy goes, Todd comes out of his hiding place and says, oh dear. Billy goes to the Rovers to look for Todd, but he's not there, but Paul is. And he says, you've made the right choice saying no. And Billy's like, oh, actually, I don't think I have.
Yeah, because at this point, didn't I think Summer told Paul, did she, that he declined, and and Billy was like, oh, I don't know.
Well, Paul, Billy's like, I haven't said yes or no. I didn't even answer. And Paul says, I can't even believe that you're contemplating marrying him. And Billy says, no, he's changed. He's a good person. And Paul says, no, he's not changed. You have. And he points out...
it was last year, wasn't it? What happened?
He points out that previously Paul and Billy had talked about getting married, but only when Billy brought up the fact that he would marry Paul in a heartbeat if they could get married in a church. Because I criticised him at the time about this, of what kind of a clergyman sort of represents a church that thinks his life is inherently sinful. I just can't. I totally. I can understand how you could be a clergyman and be gay, but I don't understand how you could. How can you reconcile the fact that you're not actually allowed to get married in the church?
He's working his way up, and he's archdeacon now. Next stop, Archbishop of Canterbury.
I'm
and
afraid,
then after
Michael,
that, he's going to be the king, and he can decide.
I was going to say, the next stage is shacking up with Charles, and that's, I guess that would...
That'd solidify it, wouldn't it?
That really would make the difference. I mean, Camilla probably wouldn't mind, because she'd just go back to being the bit on the side again.
Yeah, just like old times.
I really love Camilla, by the way, everybody. She's great.
So they didn't actually talk about how they would get around this, did they? Paul brings it up and said, said
yeah,
that how could you do it? But there was no discussion, as far as I remember, of
I don't care anymore
because I've found a loophole.
No, he says, I watched an episode of Coronation Street where they got married, where Hayley and Roy were going to get married by this other vicar who doesn't care.
Yeah, I'm going to go down to the Duckenfield Unitarian
I'm going to go to the No F's Given Church of Weatherfield. Anyway...
he'll sort that out closer.
I'm sure they'll just have some kind of
blessing,
Victoria Park heathen ceremony.
Get some tips. We get Kirk and get his headdress on again.
I'm sure there's. It just doesn't make sense to me, because because I assume he's Church of England.
He is definitely Church of England.
Why are you laughing?
Well, he's not Catholic, is he?
I know, but there's other ones, aren't there? Baptists, aren't they different?
Is that church?
I don't understand it.
Oh, gosh,
I'm sorry, I'm not
now.
a massive...
I can't remember.
I'm not a massive Christian. I'm not big up on I've never understood denominations. I know the Catholics and the Protestants.
100% Anglican.
Right, so Anglican, not necessarily Church of England, but we assume.
That is Church, yeah.
Right,
Anglican
I
is Church
don't
of
know.
England.
Why are you using a different word to confuse me?
Not Methodist.
Methodist is not Church of England. What's Baptist?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter, but it kind of does, because if he's Church of England, would you ever, as a C of E sort of clergyman, get married by a different, more accepting branch of the Christian church?
That's a very good point.
Because if they did, would that not go in the papers? Because he's basically saying, my church, it doesn't tolerate my sexuality.
I think he would say...
It's very problematic.
It's all
the same God, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well...
It's like doing it with your fingers crossed behind your back or whatever, isn't it?
You shouldn't be... Was that what you were doing when we got married? Because I'm sorry, but it still counts. So anyway, Paul stomps off saying, don't expect me to pick up the pieces when he breaks your heart again. He's very upset. Todd and Billy meet up and have a chat at the flat later, and Todd says, look, I promise I'm not going to disappear again. And Billy says, Paul's going to need convincing. And Todd and I both say, there's nothing to do with him. I don't care what he thinks. Yeah, what does it even matter? It doesn't matter. He says, I can't blame him if he feels hurt over what has happened. And then Billy goes, oh, my knee. Oh, he goes down on one knee and he proposes back.
It's just like when Rana and Kate propose to each other, isn't it? At the same time.
You know, I mean, like I said, heteronormative relationships, we've got the whole thing where man has to do the proposing, and if the woman does it, you know, people are like, oh, how modern. But when you've got a gay couple, all bets are off. You can do what you like.
Yeah, marriage for gay couple is new. We haven't set the...
There's no tradition.
No.
But
I think if we looking at Coronation Street, the double proposal is the way to go, apparently.
Well, I mean, Kate and Rana had a simultaneous proposal.
Yes, they did.
And this is more of a...
Staggered
proposal. The old classic staggered gay proposal. Love it. So he proposes back. And then Summer comes home and there's a classic Corrie freak out.
Oh my gosh, we're married! We're going to get married! It's going to be fabulous!
Alright, no. A classic Corrie fake out. Which is a tradition.
That is a total tradition.
She comes home, they're both sad. And then they go, not really, we're getting married. And she goes, oh, that's nice, isn't it? Then she goes, I found this letter on the porch and it says, don't get too comfortable, your lies will come out.
Yeah, well, it was in an envelope. She hasn't seen this.
She hands it to him, he opens it and reads it privately, Todd does. And he's like, oh dear. But he says,
this person doesn't know how to use apostrophes. Sorry.
This is just
I'm on it again.
A letter from George, he says.
Yes. But it's not.
It's on the helpline. This made me laugh. It's on the flyer from the helpline that they all worked on, which was it a mental health one? I've forgotten.
Yeah.
I don't remember, so I'm asking you.
It was like a Samaritan's jobby.
Yes, that's right. It was a helpline for male mental health. Was it male or just anyone?
I don't remember.
But later on, they're saying, oh, I don't know who this could have come from. And it's like, do you not hand these out to people? Because they're saying, oh, it must be somebody from the helpline. No, surely it's from anybody.
That everybody throws them away as soon as they come through the letterbox.
It really was a very damning insight into their marketing strategy. On Tuesday, Gemma sees Todd and Paul arguing in the street, and Todd saying, just give up because I've got the prize. I've got the Archdeacon. Sad. Because they don't even have an Archdeacon's cottage or anything.
No.
Paul is really rattled and tells Todd, you better be looking for a staff discount on a coffin soon, which is probably the smartest insult he's ever come up with in his life. He's probably going to write that down. Sean then decides to complicate the story.
Oh, I put this story in there as well. The Sean and George and Eileen bit, I've just added in there.
This was somewhat of a silly story, really. Sean wants to move back with Eileen because now he's given up double glammy and he owes loads of money to everybody. And he can't afford to stay in his flat. So he wants to move in with her rent-free. And she says no, basically. So he gets annoyed. Then Todd comes over and tells Eileen, he says, I need to buy yourself a hat. And she's like, oh, how come? Because I'm getting married, Mum. Then he gets a threatening text and he thinks it's Paul that's texting him. He tells Billy that Paul's been doing this. And Billy says, oh dear. Paul's going to have to accept this, otherwise he can get out of our lives. So Billy catches Paul in the cafe and says, back off, control your jealousy, and if you can't, you've got to stay away from Summer as well.
Well, I don't even think it's if you can't stay away from Summer, it's just literally stay away from my daughter, I'm sorry.
Todd gets another message, red rec, 5 o'clock, be there, or else. And he's like, haha, isn't Paul a stupid idiot? Gemma and Paul then are back at Gemma's house and they're talking about Todd, and Gemma says, Todd seemed to me to be freaking out about what he thought you had said in a manner that you might do if you'd actually done the thing that you were being accused of, rather than sort of saying, I don't know why you said this about me. He seemed to think that you had a secret on him and the secret was something he actually has done.
Yes.
And then they say, oh, who could possibly have the flyer like that? Nobody, except people that work there. So 5 p.m. Todd's really not taking this seriously. He hasn't even left the Rovers yet.
He's just happy to imagine
he's like,
Paul
Paul's waiting
stewing
there
out on the
for
red
me,
wreck. Yeah.
Idiot. George senses things aren't good between Sean and Eileen, and he says, well, why don't we, me and you, Sean, big each other up to Eileen, and she'll be convinced to take us both in.
Mm-hmm.
I as the boyfriend and confidant, you as the lodger. And Sean says, I haven't got anything else in the script, so yes.
Don't know what's going on with Dylan's
storyline. Really great idea. But Todd comes back home later and finds somebody trying to crowbar their way into the flat. He runs off. Todd chases. The person trips and falls and turns over, and it is Will. Now, do you guys remember who Will is? Because you might need a refresh. He is the young lad who was phoning the helpline that Todd, Paul, and AJ worked at.
Yeah.
And he was phoning up, but he was under the employ of Todd to bait Paul into breaking the rules so that he would get fired, Paul would get fired from the job, and eventually Paul got so embroiled in this fake story that Will and Todd concocted that Will was being beaten up by his stepdad or something, that he went to an address and beat a man up because he thought that was Will's stepdad or dad or whatever.
Nice recap. You remember this more than me.
He got himself in trouble, and then Will was being paid by Todd, and he threw the phone in the bin to show Todd that was over and they had both got what they wanted out of it.
Yes.
Turns out that actually he wants more money. He's turned back up.
You missed the bit about getting Summer run over.
Oh yes. Will also broke into Billy's house and smashed up the piano.
Yes.
And Summer came in, saw him, ran downstairs.
She did a classic Corrie freak out.
Shut up. And got run over by a car.
But that's fine, really, these days.
He just bounced right off.
They're made of sturdy stuff in Weatherfield now.
Yeah. So Will.
It's Will.
Will says, I'm skint and I owe people money, so I want £3,000. And over the course of the week, this goes from £3,000 to £5,000.
How old do you reckon Will's supposed to be? Because he's talking about, huge amounts of money he wants, and he's kind of really talking the hard talk, isn't he? But he seems just like an annoying little scrote to me, and I'd be like, I'm telling your mum on you.
17, 18, I don't know, yeah. What do you need £3,000 for? PlayStation 5 and all the
It's
all
the
Fortnite
games? V-Bucks, I think. Maybe.
Is that a thing? What's that?
Fortnite money. So I've been told.
Oh, okay, Fortnite money. I thought you said a V-Box.
Like V-Bucks.
They made a new console just to play Fortnite.
V-Box is what we could watch our telly on, the Virgin Box.
True. I want money, and I also didn't actually throw away the SIM cards, so you're an idiot for trusting me.
Yeah, he just threw away the empty phone.
I haven't even got that much money. Do one. Paul organises a meeting with AJ, the guy from the helpline, and
AJ's not particularly surprised.
They have this really funny gossip session where they're like, Paul's like, so Todd, and AJ's like, yeah, Todd. Everyone surely who's listening to this must have had a conversation in their life where somebody brings up somebody to you and you both don't like them, but you don't realise at the beginning of the conversation you're trying to work each other out. Like, if I say anything horrible, are you going to think I'm mean, or are you going to agree with me? So like, yeah, Todd, and AJ's like, yeah, to be honest with you, I've never really thought. I thought Todd was a bit of a wrong-un. And Paul's like, you know what? I'm so glad you said that, because he is. And AJ says, I'm not surprised to hear Todd's got his claws into Billy, because he's obviously really obsessed with him. And they basically just bitch about how awful Todd is. And then this reaffirms Paul's decision that he has to uncover what the secret is that Todd thinks that Paul knows. Back home, Todd gets another call from Will, and he goes out to meet him again, and he gives him £600. And Will says, well, that's nice, but it's not £5,000, is it? Which is how much you owe me. So you need to give me the rest of it. And Todd's like, oh, darn it.
Yeah. That's looking for loans on Friday, doesn't he?
On Friday, Sean and George are doing us the pincher scheme on Eileen.
Pincher? That sounds like they're going to try to pinch her bum.
I go, it was him.
Isn't he a nice guy?
He must does it because he loves you. Will lurks as Billy and Summer leave the flat, and he does some not so subtle stalking of her into the ginnel.
He really makes it obvious he's following her.
And she's also like, she's the dumbest. Like, I'm sorry, don't victim blame, but equally, if a man is following you very, very obviously, and you have the choice of going into a pub where people you know work, or into a ginnel where people have been murdered and beaten, don't go into the ginnel, go into the pub. She walks into the ginnel and he kind of jumps on her, and then he's like...
She jump out at him. He
Well,
kind of goes in there and she launches a surprise attack.
And she holds her bag up like she's got a shotgun in it.
It's like when you get people who put a banana in their pocket and say it's loaded.
Like, and she says, I've got mace. And it's like, you're not even allowed mace in this country. I don't know where you think you've got that from.
The same place that Sharon got a taser from, probably.
She probably starts spraying it. It's like minty fresh breath spray. Anyway, she drops her stuff everywhere.
Including her diabetes kit, which makes them go,
and it has a big... she's got the little...
a big pencil case, hasn't she?
It's a pencil case, and it's got diabetes 1 written on it.
Yeah.
In big letters so that everybody knows.
Yeah.
I suppose that's quite helpful, because if somebody kind of faints and then you go through their things to see if they've got medicine, oh, they've got diabetes 1.
If you were walking down the street and somebody fainted, would your first idea be done a route through their bag?
Yeah, loot. Well, this is the thing. This is the unfortunate thing about some people who have certain illnesses or disabilities where it presents itself as, you know, fainting or having a seizure or something. Often people confuse it with somebody who's drunk.
Yeah.
And they don't help because they think the person's kind of done it to themselves, which is really sad and unfortunate. But yeah, always loot, that's what I say.
Hadn't they had that with Johnny or someone when he got a bit wibbly wobbly and people thought he was...
So anyway, he says, look, I'm sorry, I want to explain to you some things that you didn't know. I'm the person who broke into your flat. So she's just so gullible, she listens to everything he says. Meanwhile, at speed dial, Billy's presenting Todd with an engagement ring, and Summer kills the mood by bringing Will downstairs, and she says, he's the guy who's robbed the flat, but he wants to say he's sorry. And Will's like, yeah, I am, I'm really sorry. And Summer says, oh, Billy, won't you forgive him? And Todd goes, gulp.
Did he actually gulp? I was typing notes at this point.
He didn't, but he should have done. It's the tradition.
Classic 2020 Todd certainly would have gulped at that point. He's moved on since then.
He's gone a bit more subtle. Meanwhile, George is listening to Eileen's... Crony crickets. Meanwhile, George is listening in to Eileen's woes about how... This was weird as well. I assume this is going to turn into something next week. Because apparently Jason's got himself involved in some kind of online bank scam over in Thailand.
I thought it was that he's just invited Gail to stay with him. Gail says, can I just pop over to live with you? I'm coming to Thailand, Jason. He's like, yeah, sure, you can crash here for the night. But he finds himself that he's shacked up with her.
Scammed him.
She's got a year rent of his house or something.
Yeah,
that's the proper scam.
I don't know whether there is any link here, because Gail's gone to Thailand before and Eileen was there as well, and they never mentioned it, or, you know, there's no reason why Gail would drop in on Jason, her arch nemesis son.
No, not really. I think it's
I think it's a bit weird, honestly, that of all the countries in the world, and none of which we can actually go to because of COVID, she's gone to the same country, that now Eileen's talking about Jason being involved in a scam. Because, Jason is played by...
Ryan
Giggs.
Thomas.
Who is not, as far as I know, coming back to the show. But he certainly would,
Yeah.
I assume that he's not dead.
He's doing some work for his brother at the moment, isn't he? He's doing some bit of... online delivery stuff the last time we talked about him in the news.
I don't know, but he's still in the entertainment profession. I don't think he's an actor at the moment.
He's being a lad on holiday on TV.
He's like white middle class people go on holiday genre of programmes. Yeah. That's all so much fun for everyone to watch. So he's in Thailand. He's been scammed. She's talking about this to George. He doesn't care. He tries to tell her about how Sean's a changed man and he misses living with her. And Eileen says, oh, maybe I should cut him some slack, actually. So
back to the main bit of the story.
Will is scoffing dinner that's been bought for him in speed dial by idiot Billy, who, to be fair, has to legally forgive everybody.
He's just very trusting.
Because he's a archdeacon.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, everything's all forgiven. He's like, oh, yeah, because it's really sad for me at the moment because my mum's diabetic and I live in a horrible house. And Todd says, no, Billy says, oh, dear, I'll see what I can do about that. And he gets on his phone. I don't know who's phoning up. But he leaves them alone. He leaves Will alone with Todd. And Will says, by the way, I still want my money, thank you. After the meal, Todd warns Billy some people don't change and they shouldn't get too close to Will. And they should just sort him out with his flat and then just leave him alone. And then Todd starts to call people to try and arrange a loan. Paul sees Will, not happy about it. Because obviously the last time he saw him, he was beating up his stepdad that was just a random man. And he accuses him of setting him up and being in cahoots with Todd. And Summer's like, no, that's not true. Paul confronts Billy about letting Summer hang around with this person who wrecked the flat. And he's like, I know there's something not right going on here, but I can't put my finger on it. And Billy's not even listening. Gemma comes and drags him home. And she says, come home.
Got 4 filled nappies to change.
And then she says, all that poo will calm you down. I don't know what is Paul doing
just,
with this.
Running your fingers through it. Oh, it's like, nice and soft and squidgy.
Oh, that makes me feel just very ill. Eileen comes into the Rovers later and Sean's going on about how great George is. And then she accuses them of being in the Mutual Appreciation Society for Weirdos.
I like that line. That was a good one.
That was a good one. Todd is not getting anywhere with this loan. Billy comes in and tells him about Paul. Todd says he's just jealous. Then Todd breaks into the funeral parlour. Well, he uses the key. So tries to help himself to the petty cash.
Apostrophe here, there shouldn't be one.
But there is only £5 in there. Can't believe it. There's only £5 in the petty cash. I don't know many people that pay for their funerals with cash. Also, why is there £5 in there? That's the thing.
It's just for bickies, isn't it?
I know, but what's
George needs a supply of chocolate hobnobs.
I thought that was their till. So someone's come on in and gone, what's the cheapest thing I can buy in here for £5? They're like, this plastic rose?
Oh, there's a doorbell. I'm just going to go and answer the door. Be right back. It was a parcel for me. Anyway, where were you, Gemma?
Why are you making a speech about it?
People need to know. There was a ding-dong at the door.
Right, so then Todd gets a picture message from Will, and it's him and Summer having a nice time, and with TikTok written on it. Not the app, the clock noise.
Yes. Time is running out, Todd.
Yeah.
Gives them money.
Gives us money. Paul and Gemma see Todd coming out of the funeral parlour. Paul says, I'm happy that Will is hanging around because it will give me a chance to find out all about what you're up to. Dun, dun, dun.
Dum, dum, dum. So...
Dum, 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 dum.
We seem to be quite animated talking about this story this week, but maybe it was covering up the fact that we found it rather dull.
Can
I say now that I wasn't a massive fan of this week's Coronation Street on the whole, and the fact that this storyline was the the headliner this week didn't really help very much. When we were talking just recently about first half of 2021 in Coronation Street, I was thinking, there does seem to be there's quite a lot of good stuff here. I don't know why I feel so generally down about it. Why did I give so many low scores and everything? And I think this particular story about the twisted romance of Billy, Todd and Paul is what really dragged Coronation Street down kind of spring this year. And yeah, seeing it again this week just reminded me that I'm not really invested in this romantic, who's Billy going to end up with in the slightest. I don't really know what it is.
I thought you wanted Billy and Todd to stay together.
Well, yeah, I do. I'm happy. But the problem is I've kind of assumed...
You've resigned yourself
I've resigned myself to the fact that Todd is going to get caught out and Billy and Paul are going to end up together, which I really...
Billy and Paul?
Yeah, Billy and Paul are going to end up together. And, I mean, they're now engaged, Todd and Billy, but I would still be not in the least bit surprised if at the end of the year it's Paul that's got that ring on his finger and Billy's taking him up the aisle, so to speak. I think that's going to happen. And I know sometimes I moan and whinge on about things that are just my predictions on Coronation Street. But it seems like that's obviously where it's going to go, don't you?
See, this is the thing. I kind of agree with you, but I'm not sure whether that's really... I don't know whether it's necessarily what's going to happen, but it does feel...
It feels like Coronation Street wants us to be,
rooting for Paul.
But I find that really, really difficult.
Paul is just a generally unlovely person.
I think
these stories.
In these stories, that's it. I don't like it when he has the weight of the world on him. And I like the idea of Paul. I think he seems like a pretty chill kind of guy, pretty cool dude. It's the sort of person that, maybe I would like. Maybe I'm just thinking of Peter Ash and his Nintendo obsession seems to be rivaling mine. But this story and the Kel story, when everything was just going wrong for him, he doesn't elicit my sympathy because he just kind of screws his face up and shouts at the world and gets angry. And that's the sort of person that I find it really difficult to sympathise with. And I'm watching this going, Billy, why? Why are you interested in... I know he's not at the moment, but surely he will be, interested in saving, falling in love with, spending the rest of your life with this kid who is... He's not a kid. I mean, what is he, 30-ish?
He acts very child.
He had his 30th birthday last year,
immature.
didn't he? He does come across as being super immature.
He doesn't come across as being very bright. There's nothing wrong with that, but certainly I can't see what he and Billy would talk about. Because Billy seems like the sort of person who really likes to look at buttresses, and Paul looks like the sort of person who would just be eternally confused about where the butter was.
and he gets angry and he punched that cupboard and everything.
He was fine when he's working with Ed.
Yes, absolutely. When Paul went off and he had those a couple of weeks where he was working under Ed, he still is working for him, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was great then. And when he was there at the builder's yard and they were making fun of Seb and dressing him up in the bin bag.
Yeah.
Yes, it was cruel, blah blah blah. But it was kind of I could see that he was having a good time there when he was with Daniel.
With Daniel going, I don't know how to fix this cupboard door.
That was great. There is a lot to like about Paul, but
jealous Paul is not.
It's really unendearing, and like I said, I just don't think he's a great suit for Billy.
This is the thing. The thing that he's
especially compared to Todd, who since they've been together these past few months, and yes, I've known that Todd's methods for getting his claws into Billy were somewhat unscrupulous. I thought, well, it's that's how you get there. It's about fighting for your man, isn't it? and. Yeah, they've been great together. They've felt like intellectual match. I mean, they've got very different outlooks on life in certain respects.
Well, this is the trouble because there's going to be conflict about the wedding. I don't think either of them have thought about the fact that Todd really probably does not care about getting married in a church.
I don't think he doesn't. I think he probably doesn't care, but I think he would get married in a church if that's what Billy wants.
But also, I think that if I was Billy, I would be uncomfortable with the fact that Todd would be like, yeah, whatever, pray to your magic sky fairy. But I couldn't really take it. I couldn't really get married with somebody who had such contempt for my beliefs as Todd does, because Todd has always been very, he has rude and patronising to Billy about his religion.
Yeah,
although they did pray the other day together. I can't remember why.
Yeah, they did. Maybe it was probably after Seb. Whereas I suppose Paul has been a bit more accepting, but it's not like he's goes to church every Sunday or anything like that either. I don't know whether either of them would necessarily be the right match for the archdeacon of the parish, but there's
not very many eligible bachelors around the parish, though, are there?
Everything that I've seen of Billy and Todd together makes me think that they're a much better match.
Yes, I agree with you, but still not perfect.
No, definitely not perfect.
But this is the thing. So we're being kind of forced into rooting for an imperfect match over somebody else who's even worse.
It's the whole team and rivalries thing, that the theme that Coronation Street is doing for this summer, isn't it? Are you on Team Todd or Team Paul? And there are loads of people that are on Team Paul. Lots of people definitely. I've seen lots of people that are supporting it. I'm sure some of our listeners are saying, no, what you're talking about. Of course, Billy and Paul are a better match. They're both a lot more innocent, a lot nicer together. Paul's so uncomplicated.
The thing is, though, as far as characters go, Todd is by far the most interesting of all three of these characters.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes no difference whether he's with Billy or not, because he's still really interesting. And in fact, it's probably more interesting to watch him scheming and trying to get revenge than it is him playing happy family.
That's true. Do I want to see him tied down and be a family man? Maybe not. And there'd always be the lingering possibility that he could, turn around and screw Billy and Summer over, possibly, or Scarpa again, definitely. But I think that he does deserve a bit of happiness, because I think deep down, honestly, I truly believe that Todd is a good guy that's just made some really stupid choices over the years. I'm remembering, 2000s Todd before he even turned evil at all, and know that there is a good guy in there. And we've seen it through like the Phelan story, and when he came back from London and he had all these issues about what went on, what's turned him so nasty. I totally believe in Todd, and I think he's the one that needs, the redemption, and maybe he could get that somewhat by staying with Billy. I don't know. I just don't get what Billy sees in Paul.
I think Todd is one of these people who, unfortunately, the way they relate to the world is in a very manipulative and Machiavellian manner. So he couldn't sort of have a honest relationship if he tried, I don't think, because his brain just doesn't work like that. This is what I was saying before about when we had Yasmin and Jeff, and I was saying like a lot of the stuff that Jeff is doing here is not even consciously plotted, or he's not like choosing to do this because he knows that what's going to happen. It's just that his natural way of interacting with people is so corrupted and malevolent. It's not even a conscious decision. So same with Todd. I don't think he consciously decides to be evil, but his way of relating with the world is so screwed up by whatever's happened to him that it's just inevitable that he can't have a healthy relationship. He needs some counselling.
So do you agree? Do you think that it's going to be Paul with a ring on his finger this year?
I've always just wondered whether Todd and Paul would end up together as a joke, but I think that might be a bit too far.
Yeah, at the end of the day, to be honest, I'm so nonplussed by all of this. I wouldn't necessarily care if none of them end up together, but I don't think we're supposed to think that. I think we're supposed to really be
caring about who's with who.
And also, I mean, Summer's the important one in all this. It's got to be someone who she's going to get on with. But honestly, she likes, from what I've seen, she likes Todd just as much as she likes Paul, and maybe she relies on Paul for some things more than Todd. But I do think that she's had a great relationship with both of them. So it's kind of moot, really. Yes, maybe I don't think that Paul would ever let Summer down, and I think Todd certainly has the potential for that. But she's growing up. She's going to be an adult in a couple of years. So
get over it.
Yeah. Will being back, happy to see him again, or just a face that needed to stay in the past? And AJ, I suppose.
I guess it's unfinished business. In a way.
They need him back for Billy to inevitably discover what Todd has been doing.
Yeah, and once it comes out, which it obviously will, Billy will have no choice but to say to Todd, I can't. Because it's one thing, the thing is, it's one thing sort of being unscrupulous and lying to Billy to manipulate him into a relationship. Perhaps that'd be forgivable, I don't know. But it's quite another thing to basically ruin Paul's life, which is what Todd did. And I don't think it's up to Billy to forgive somebody for doing that to somebody else. This is where I would have, if I was Billy, that's where I'd have the problem, because, it's down to Paul to say, and Paul's not going to forgive Todd.
No, but Billy is very, very forgiving. I mean, he forgave Will just this week, despite supposedly being the one to cause Summer nearly getting killed earlier this year. So he could, and he has in the past, forgive Todd, just like that.
Well,
it wouldn't surprise me if he did turn around and say, yeah, well, as well, Todd was able to manipulate him into saying, oh, well, means justify the ends. We are good for each other. Oh, how complicated.
Oh, what a wicked web.
Yeah.
Deceit and misery.
But it's just not that. It's not that interesting, is it?
I'm
sorry to say.
In theory, it's interesting, but at the end of the day, if you're not that fussed about the characters and you don't really care who Billy ends up with, you're not going to get as much out of this.
Yeah, I'm more invested, and sadly feeling that I'm constantly being shortchanged in the Eileen and George pairing, because I can't believe that they haven't got together yet.
This is the thing. I was just about to say, they're another couple where I thought they were already going out with each other.
No, they're just slowly
farting around.
They are. I mean, maybe it's just because George is used to going slowly when he's walking in front of the hearse, and he thinks that he has to
can't be sprinting.
take that to his relationships as well. But for heaven's sake, he's been in the show for 8-9 months now, and it's been fairly obvious
from the beginning
who he's going towards. But
and she's single, terminally single.
Yeah.
So I don't know what she's trying to...
He seems like he could be finally a good guy for her. I don't think he's got some nasty secret or the potential to go bad or anything.
You know, at some
he does have some skeletons in his closet. Maybe he hooks them out of the coffins. Maybe
in about I'm going to predict around October time, somebody is going to come into the funeral parlour and they're going to say to Todd, "I need to speak to George immediately," and then George will come out and go, "My God, it's Agnes," or something, and it will be some kind of horrible family secret that is over in about 3 weeks.
Maybe. He seems like he'd be a nice match for Eileen.
I know, of course, but Michael,
they're just not
this
giving
is
them. They're just not giving them enough screen time, and I wonder whether there have been, the pure speculation why we've not seen very much of George or Eileen over the last 7-8 months. Is it COVID related? I don't know, but they need to pick up the pace, because it's pretty glacial at the moment, and there's only so much of this I can take. Let's maybe get them together next week. Come on, because Eileen has been... Yeah, she's not done much recently. I think it could be sweet. I like the idea of it being sweet. I'm not fussed with the short one. If he goes and lives with Eileen, whatever, I don't really care about that. But please, Eileen and George, that would be lovely. You ready? Should we move on to the next story? I think we talked about this one long enough. So, who is he? / Stretched Armstrong. Shirley Houston is back. We've had teasers of her over the past few months, haven't we? Appearing on Zoom calls or whatever it is that they use in Weatherfield.
Izzy's back, but they only wrote a script for one scene. They just had her perform the same scene.
It did feel a bit like that this week.
I got really fed up with this towards the end.
I was
thrilled to see Izzy back. I really like the imaginative and creative way that they've reintroduced her to the show to keep her safe at home. So if you don't know, Izzy is played by
Shirley Houston,
who is filming from her own home.
Yes.
And Fergus is her real life partner.
Yeah, very clever.
So very clever. I assume he's a professional actor.
He is.
Otherwise the union's going to have to be getting involved in this, because we can't have that all the way back to Thunderbirds when we have fake hands. Can't be having that. Got to have real actors.
Yes.
So that's it. That's all I've got to
say. But the way that the story
was ridiculous.
It was dragged out a little bit.
I
was waiting for more.
The story felt like a bunch of brownies in a pack trying to organise a blooming camping trip. Squabbling with each other and never coming to any kind of logical conclusion.
You had more of a problem with it than I did. Let's go over what happened first. So we had Monday, Carla making herself at home in the factory because she is now the majority shareholder at Underworld. Sarah's nose is peeing right out of joint. And Carla says, look, we just need to stop squabbling, try to be a team. And this is put to the test this week with Izzy, because she's been working on some samples back at home and she needs to show them to, is it Joe LaFoe, something like that. The
big client
person, yeah.
Mistake number 1, putting your most crucial piece of work in the hands of an employee who, yes, up until now has you said been one of your best
she's a proper long-termer, isn't she?
But who is not under your actual control or supervision, and you can't check her progress, and she keeps telling you that she's behind, and you're still putting her in charge of these apparently crucial samples.
Has she been saying she's behind?
Yes.
I thought she's saying they're nearly ready, hasn't she? Maybe we need some video evidence.
I'm pretty sure that Sarah's saying, yes, she said she was having trouble.
Okay. So Sarah says that we need these in an hour, so she's starting to panic about the fact that they're still not there in her hands yet. Because she gets this, she has this phone call, doesn't she, with a Zoom call or whatever.
Well, that's how Izzy appears.
They're nearly there.
So but just to explain that Izzy appears on the screen in Zoom calls, and also there's a camera in her house as well, a professional.
And before we forget it, can we just talk about that scene where Carla's zooming Izzy at one point on her tablet? Sarah's sitting opposite Carla in the desk.
No,
and she's
Sally.
Sally, isn't it? She's sitting opposite her on the desk with this photograph of Peter. And it looked like Peter was joining it.
It looked like Sally was going, is this how you do a Zoom?
Anyway, Sarah clocks this strange man in the background, and this gets tongues waggling up until the reveal of who it is on Wednesday.
The scene repeats throughout the whole week. Izzy's on Zoom call. They ask her an awkward question. A man appears, and she quickly hangs up.
Yes.
This happens over and over again, and I'm completely on Carla's side here. Totally sympathise with Izzy and her situation, but you have to communicate what the issue is. And, you know, spoiler alert, at the end of this, I'm just wondering, it seems to me that Izzy is in pain and she can't keep up with her work. Why on earth is she not using her sick leave, or she's not being given time off? Because she clearly needs it and she deserves time to heal. I don't get it. Why do they keep trying to force her to do work that she doesn't even have to do?
I'm guessing that she's worrying that she's only got maybe a certain amount of sick leave.
The thing is, everybody has a certain amount of sick leave guaranteed to you by law, but the way that Carla and Sarah run their business, I can certainly imagine them having an arrangement with an employee that they already have given accommodations to because of her disability, having an arrangement with her whereby they say. And they kept asking her, are you ill? Do you need more time? Are you okay? Is it your EDS? And she kept saying, no.
She's just being a trooper, isn't she? She doesn't want to let the side down. She doesn't want to admit that she's struggling. Because this is something that she has had to deal with the whole of her life.
And
she went through all of these struggles, and it was only 5 years ago we realised that she needed a couple of spliffs to ease the pain. So she's had to hide this.
But I've said this before, and I say it again, and unfortunately this is the truth. You have to be your own advocate. If you are mentally capable, which Izzy is, you have to advocate for yourself and your health, and to medical professionals and your employers. You cannot expect other people to do it for you because they can't. They don't live in your body and they don't know. And if you've got somebody like Carla and Sarah who are sympathetic and would believe you, because I also understand that there are situations whereby people have no sympathy for people with chronic illnesses,
which is why they're highlighting
and they can't
this
even
issue.
Understand what it's like to live in constant pain and to worry about dislocating your joints and to stress about this. But this is the thing, that in this situation with these characters, this story makes no sense. The same thing that happened with Sean's storyline of being homeless.
I think maybe up until this point, Izzy's been able to string Sarah along a bit, because Sarah has been maybe a little bit gullible about it. Maybe she's just being very, very accommodating, and
but she's
possibly
not helping anybody, is
no,
she?
And now Carla's boss, Izzy's suddenly panicking. Oh, I got to pull my socks up. I can't. Because
Carla's sort of said, well, if that's the case, then everybody's going to have to pull the slack. And now there are consequences because... anyway, I just find this whole thing feels...
It
really
could have been
shoddy.
done better, but I didn't have as big a problem.
I like the idea behind it, and I think it's really important. But I just think again, Coronation Street has taken a really important issues-based storyline and plotted it badly with so many holes and illogical bits.
It's early days.
Yes.
So Sarah reckons that Izzy's got a new man, and Carla isn't happy about this because she thinks that Izzy is spending more time canoodling than she should be when she should be knicker stitching.
Yeah.
So Carla goes over to the bistro to meet with Joe DeBow, massively stalling because the samples still haven't arrived. Finally, Kirk arrives with this massive box just in time and says, "There you go, just been round Izzy's house. Izzy's been bashing them out all day," and Carla's like, "No, she has not. She's been working very diligently on them. It's fine. Don't worry about them. These are yeah." But then when Joe inspects them, she's not impressed with the stitch work there. The gussets all coming out, or I don't know, whatever it is. I don't understand pants. Carla bluffs that it must be a box of rejects that Izzy has given to Kirk by mistake, but she promised that she will send the actual knickers over to Joe first thing in the morning. Joe's not really happy that she's had her afternoon wasted, but she agrees to this and then
I don't
off.
understand also, this is a box of samples, right? Can't Carla just go, right, these are just rough samples, do you like this? Obviously, when we do it for real,
I don't think so. I don't think that would fly.
Really?
Yeah. I think if you're going to give samples, it needs to be pretty much what the actual thing is going to be. Maybe with a big sample stamp stuck over the front of it.
When you go to, like, you know, a shop and they go, here's your little sample of a cup of tea, you don't go, well, this is crap, I'm not going to drink tea out of a thimble.
No, but if you're going to get a sample of a cup of tea, then you don't want it to be as watery as heck, do you? Or, you know...
I know, but then they can say, you can make this how you like.
No. I'm on Joe's side for this. I would expect top quality if I'm being given samples. So anyway, Carla goes back to the factory, giving the boxes to Sarah, and she says, "Look, Izzy is spending far too much time with this new bloke in her life."
It depends on what the sample is supposed to demonstrate. Because to me, I thought it was a sample to say this is the style and the colour and the lace trim, but you're saying this is a sample of the finished product and this is what they will look like.
This is a sample of Underworld quality manufacturing here, and when you sign up with Underworld and you work with us, then you are going to get this quality.
Well, number one failed completely because they didn't have any quality control process on this.
They did not. I don't know who's in charge of it.
Joe should run a mile, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember. Did Hayley used to be in charge of quality control, I think.
They need to get Creed on the case.
They do need to get Creed, yeah, absolutely. Anyway, Carla's saying, look, Izzy just needs to come back to work. She's been vaccinated now. She's safe. We've got all the health and safety measures, the risk assessment. I actually think that she'd be fine to come back here. And Sarah says, look, we can't just tell her to come back. We need to kind of ask her in a way that makes it sound like she's being given the option. And Carla's like, right, you get right on that, Sarah. You talk to her and tell her without telling her she needs to be back in this office as ASAP. So Sarah calls Izzy again, puts the idea to her. She doesn't seem sure about this, and she's very cagey. She does. Sarah asked you about this bloke in the background again, and Izzy's very very cagey about this. She puts the phone down, and then when she does, Blokey is there. Fergus is his name, and he says to her, right, you don't want to go back until you're ready. I don't know whether there's any kind of what Fergus's deal is, and is there a bit of what's it called? When you get to like your hostages, what's that called?
Stockholm syndrome.
I wonder whether there's this and whether Fergus is being creepily obsessed with Izzy, and he's like, no, I can't cope without you, because we haven't had very much of this
really
week
interesting concept.
Is just scenes without Sarah or Carla, just literally Fergus and Izzy chatting together. There's been tiny snippets of it, but what I'm looking for, and I need to happen next week, really, because I don't think we're supposed to be suspicious of Fergus, but I am, I need to see a scene where they're talking about it properly together, and we can really get underneath Izzy's skin, find out what's the deal with Fergus, why is he constantly round there, is it...
You're right, I never really thought of that. I don't think that's the case, but it would be a really good twist if it turns out that she was... The thing is, though, this comes on the kind of heels of a coercive control storyline, and I don't think that they could
suspect everyone.
I know, but the thing is, though...
I'm primed for it.
This would be along the lines of Mary and Norris, where it's a comedy, like, creepy person overstepping boundaries, but after having done the issues-based storyline of coercive control... I don't know whether it would land or...
We've got it with Corey as well, with Asher, we did do before he got banged up.
But, this is another example of Coronation Street mixing issues and non-issue storylines and becoming a bit inconsistent. So later we'll talk about Daisy and Ryan's storyline.
Yeah.
And the way that ends, you can read it in many different ways. And I think Coronation Street would like you to read it in a very sinister and unpleasant manner. But... unfortunately, in the past, these kind of things have been played off as a kind of very inconsequential. So I feel sometimes wrong-footed a little bit by Coronation Street. The inconsistency that sometimes happens. But equally, I don't want everything to be an issue storyline.
No.
And I don't want them to give up on tackling issue storylines because I find them the most interesting.
Yeah. So, end of the episode, Carla basically says we're going to have to let Izzy go if she carries on being such a massive flake. So Tuesday, Sally talks to Kirk about missing Izzy. She's lamenting the lack of Izziness in the office. She feels like she's losing touch with her, which again I think is certainly something that has happened with lots of workers who had to be shielding over the past 12 months. They felt less and less connected to their office, to their colleagues. So I think this was nice to be able to show this. And there's also a scene, I can't remember whether it was Tuesday or Friday's episode, where Sally's giving Izzy a bit of a tour on her phone of the office, which was cute. Anyway, Izzy starts the episode by phoning up Sarah. She's got a new organiser of Filofax or something that tells her when her orders need to be done by. I don't know why she didn't have that already, but
that really
anyway,
felt annoying.
Baby steps, Izzy. As soon as Sarah mentions Carla, though, Izzy freezes and ends the call, so she does not like the idea of this new boss being on her case. It was straight after this. This is when Sally gets or gives the virtual tour to Izzy.
Well, she's trying to sort of make her see that it's not scary and...
I wanted to know, because I don't know when exactly Izzy started shielding, but when she was giving her the tour of the factory, how much of it did she see? Because this new design of the factory happened around about the same time that she went home, so she's not going to have loads of memories of this office, because it looks somewhat different to the underworld that she's used to. But never mind, that's neither here nor there. So Izzy's getting a bit teary at the moment. She wants to be back. I
don't know what this tears were for.
I think it was just like all my mates are
there,
and I can't see
and
them.
hangs up.
Yeah, she does. Blokey's there again. Fergus, I've just referred to him as Blokey in the notes because we didn't have a name for him. Izzy wants to use his printer.
We'd never find out what for.
Did we?
No.
Did we? Or maybe I missed it. I don't know, maybe someone can tell us. Gary comes to the factory later. He is also concerned about Izzy because she decides, she's contacted him and said, look, can you look after Jake full time? Sally's like, is she worried about juggling Jake and working back at the factory? Is this much of a problem for her? So Gary goes round to Izzy's place, her flat, knocks on the door, no answer. Still very, very suspicious about Fergus at the moment. Is he cutting
her off?
Is he being overprotective?
See, this is the trouble about a lot of these storylines, is there's a really interesting issues-based storyline here about, how do you cope if you've got disabilities? Do people really genuinely understand what you're going through? Can they ever really? No, I don't think so. How do you ask for help? What help is available? How do you accommodate, childcare and working full-time and having to go to appointments, or, how do you get food if you can't leave the house? But same thing that happened with I keep saying Sean's storyline. It just turns into someone has problem, does not tell other people what problem is until it comes out, and then the problem gets solved. That's how this always seems to go. All of the interesting parts just kind of turn into so-and-so has a secret. The secret is they've got a problem. Then as soon as they tell somebody what the problem is, the problem goes away. That's not how real life works. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
I totally get what you're trying to say, but I can also see how somebody in Izzy's position could get over-reliant on somebody who is physically there when she's got nobody physically there.
I know, but you're talking about a different plot, aren't you?
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the plot of Izzy's like, I don't want to go back to work because I don't think I can cope, but I won't tell anybody. I will just keep avoiding the problem until it comes to a head, and then everyone finds out, and then it all turns out to be fine. You're talking about Fergus kind of getting himself into a situation whereby he likes being the carer of Izzy, and therefore doesn't want anyone else to interfere, and Izzy starts to be isolated from her friends.
Yeah, so she doesn't tell them.
Well, we're talking about two completely different things.
It's slightly linked.
Well,
anyway,
but we don't know which one of these things, if not both of them, or neither.
Yeah, okay, I get it. So anyway, Fergus himself ends up calling Sarah later. He says Izzy's on the loo. I don't think anyone went to the toilet in the soap, so
no
revelation there.
She thinks she's Carla.
This is This is where we learn a little bit more about him and the fact that he is the next door neighbour. Last year, Izzy had a fall. He helped her, and he's insisting that she's not ready to return to work yet. And then Izzy comes back from the bog. and Fergus makes a hasty exit. He obviously didn't want her to find out that he's been talking to her boss. And again, Izzy is very, very teary, and this is when she drops the bombshell that she needs to resign from
Maybe
Underworld.
this is what she was printing out, her resignation.
Oh yeah, maybe it was. So Sarah goes and tells Carla that forcing Izzy into work has just led to her quitting, and says, look what we have done. She also updates her on what she's learned about Blokey from next door. And at the end of the episode, Sally, Sarah and Kirk are en masse, all three of them.
Wow, a bubble.
Yeah, the bubble of workers who are allowed in the scene together. No Ida Clough here, building up the ranks. Come and says, right, Carla, this isn't fair. We're worried about Izzy. Can you call her and say that everything's okay? Because she's worried that you think that she's not up to the job. And Carla says, look, I'll support Izzy if she needs it, but I'm not going to be strong-armed into contacting her by you, thank you very much.
Yeah, there was a bit of ego here from Carla.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of on her side, because Izzy's just quit without talking to anybody about her situation, and I don't think that's right either.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair that if you have a disability, it's on you to have to do this. But I'm sorry, that's how it is. And it isn't fair. And some people who are less capable will have a support worker or a social worker that will help them to navigate these things. But Izzy doesn't have that, so presumably there's not a need for it, or one hasn't been identified yet. But you have to be able to communicate with people who are asking you specifically, do you have an issue? What can we do? And if your response is, I quit,
I think that she's just becoming more and more, by no fault of her own, isolated,
and the mental toll of
socially contacting people and saying these things is tough.
I mean, I think I'm a really nice person, and I probably would end up being like Sarah and trying to fix this. But I think Carla's not wrong.
I'm not,
Carla's basically going.
I'm not on Carla's side.
We can work around this if we know what to work around, but it's not really my job to be nice and counsel people. And she even says that, I think, at one point. Like, she's not a counselling service, she's trying to run a business. If you ask someone, what do you need me to do to get this to work out, and they say, I quit, I don't know, accept the resignation.
Well, Carla's solution that we find out on Friday, she seems to be fairly accommodating, in that she tells Izzy, it Carla or Sarah?
No, this is stupid.
They say there's an extended deadline.
They lie to her and get her to work on something, which I don't even know if it's a real thing. I don't know what work she's doing, but everyone else is doing work
Everyone's
as well.
picking up the slack for her.
So presumably they're getting Izzy to do nothing that useful or busy work.
Yeah, can you sew these Emperor's new knickers?
Yeah.
You won't be able to see them.
They're camouflage.
But they're brilliant. Yeah. So yeah,
it really makes me mad. They just need to say to her, look, it seems like you are suffering at the moment. Would you like to take some holiday? Would you like to take some sick leave? You need to take some time off work. I don't know how long she's been working at the factory. She probably could have a sabbatical if she wanted to.
Yeah, maybe.
She needs to go and see her doctor. She's obviously got... I mean, there's no... it's all very well me saying that. There's not... People live in constant pain. You can't just always have painkillers and it works instantly and everything goes away and everybody's happy clappy. The same as what I was saying about poor Summer. But at the same time, it
may be that she's already had this.
Had what?
Had to time off. She's had a sabbatical. We don't know. Maybe
no,
we
I don't know. But
and now she's kind of has to come back and she's still struggling.
But they haven't said that on the show.
As far as you remember, no. That's basically it, isn't it, for Friday? Everyone at the factory is kind of,
well, look, this
working
is the thing.
extra hard.
This is the interesting thing, because Sally kind of represents the workers, because we haven't seen anyone actually doing anything apart from Sally. And she's saying, oh, we need to help Izzy out. And then Carla says, okay, we do. This is what we need to do then. You need to work harder and do this, that and the other thing. And now, actually, Sally is being forced to do extra work. She doesn't want to help Izzy out anymore. She's complaining about it and saying that we had to work through
our lunch. This is illegal, isn't it?
But at the end of the day, if you're workforce, some of them aren't working. What, you know, and the production has to remain the same. What's the solution? This is the thing where Sally's kind of like being this kind of empty-headed, happy, like, you know, Disney kind of person, where she's saying everything will be fine, we just need to be kind to Izzy and accommodate her. And then Carla says, well, this is the reality then. You have to work harder than you have done before. And then Sally's like, oh no, not like that. Well, then, like, how? Like, what? What are you suggesting?
Maybe there is something else going on with Izzy that we still don't know about, because...
I hope so, because on the surface
there must be another
all
reason.
All this is a bunch of people who are all being really stupid. And none of them have been stupid like this in the past.
Well, Sarah, maybe.
Sarah's the one who's, like, the most logical in character, where she's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know. Izzy is just acting so suspicious and yes, unprofessional. The fact, if she's putting her phone down, if she's hanging up
really
on her boss
me.
multiple times.
How many other people
maybe
would get away
she does
with?
Need to, you know, have a bit of a reprimanding.
Honestly, I mean, I don't know if it's... The thing is, Izzy hasn't been like this before. If I was Izzy's boss, I would be really worried about this situation, and I'd be having a conversation with her, and I'd say, this is like an informal warning that you cannot, like, duck out of conversations. You can't put the phone down on me. If we've got a scheduled call, you have to make sure that you're available.
Well, Izzy's avoiding that whole thing by resigning, isn't she? Or trying to resign.
But this is what, like, if Izzy had issues like this in the past, where she had, you know, she had problems communicating and she hadn't been forthright with her situation and she had turned in shoddy work, then they would have been able to anticipate this and perhaps work around this, because you make accommodations for people. But because she's acting so completely out of character, I just think it's weird that nobody's calling her out on it. Which is why I hope that there is some other
kind of mystery. And I hope that Fergus isn't just there to be a friend. I mean... So far, really, the character of Fergus isn't necessarily needed for this. Yes, it added a little bit of mystery, and is she getting jiggy when she should be getting stitchy? But she hasn't had the talking to, has she?
She's just been talked at.
She has been talked at, and there's been very, very little conversation between Izzy and Fergus, which is what I say we need. So I'm giving this story the benefit of the doubt, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going next week. To be quite frank, this was the story out of all of the ones this week that when this story came on,
I was like,
this one's like, what's going to happen here?
There's
it was
the same thing over and over again with Izzy putting the phone down all the time.
It was. So by the time we got to the end of the week, it was like, oh, here we go again. But yeah, definitely, when Izzy came on the screen this week, I perked up, which is very, very unusual for Izzy, because we've not necessarily been 100% complimentary of the character in the past. I'm really, really happy that she's come back. I think this is great that they are tackling this. It's a proper COVID-related storyline, isn't it? Which have been few and far between on Coronation Street, which is completely understandable. I think that getting Toby, who's Shirley's partner, to play Fergus is a great idea. I love how they're showing her flat. There's so many things that are right about this story, and because they started promoting this at the beginning of last week, and I didn't know this was happening, and I thought, wow, this is fantastic. I'm giving it an awful lot of leeway, and I'm hoping that next week they'll be able to deliver on the promise of a decent story here, and something that will make us think, but also be soapy as well. And if Fergus is actually, you know, keeping a hostage, for want of a better word, then maybe that could be quite interesting, because he seems like he's being played as a bit of an oddball character, isn't he? He seems like a bit of a Roy Cropper-ish neighbour, as in how Roy was when he was first introduced as Deirdre's loopy neighbour back in 95 or whenever it was. I'm interested in this. I really, really am. I'm also wondering, and just, you know, not that this is important at all, has Izzy moved house at some point? Because we have seen her living in a bungalow before, and we've seen her front room, if you remember back to like the scenes where she ran over that policeman in her wheelchair. Then this, she's referred to as living in a flat, and we saw Gary going, she's got a neighbour in a flat. So does she still live at Grayling Street anymore? Possibly not. And I think it's quite lucky that it all ties up, that Izzy does live away from the street. Because if in all this time Izzy was supposed to be living in one of the terraces, this wouldn't work, would it?
No.
Unless it's like, oh, we're finally seeing the secret office that's in number 6 Coronation Street that's never been shown before. Well, not 6, one of the odd numbers. But yeah, very, very convenient that she's literally the only character, the only major character that lives off of the street, so they can maybe get away with having her move house without mentioning it, or just, assume that most viewers won't pick it up. But
Yeah.
I did. I notice everything. I see all. Well, no, that's not true at all. Sometimes the answer is slapping me in the face and I don't notice because there's a lot to take in. Should we move on to the next story?
I mean, the only other thing I want to say with this is I probably sound really unkind and uncharitable towards Izzy. I just think that, in the past she's been honest about her situation, and it's very strange. I don't know if this is a COVID mental health story. I certainly can completely sympathise with Izzy, but there's so many different things going on here. We don't know what's actually happening. Like, is Izzy physically incapable of doing the work? Because it's physical work that she's employed to do.
Yeah.
Because the pain is too great. That's one thing. Is she scared of catching COVID and she doesn't want to come back? That's another thing. Are her fears unrealistic to the point where she's sort of become agoraphobic because of
Yeah, that's
worried?
what I think it is.
Yeah. Is she being controlled by her neighbour? There's all these different things, and I don't know what it is, but it just is. And also, the other thing is, there was one scene that was really confusing where Carla said something about having Izzy resigning or something, and then she said she was joking, and then she wasn't joking.
Oh yeah, I felt very confused by what was
Izzy's
going on
resigned at least once, but she's still working there by the end of the week, despite them not actually having come up with a workable solution for what the issue is, because number one, they don't know what it is, and number two, the solution seems to be to get Izzy to do fake work while everybody else works their lunches.
Okay, let's move on to the next story then. Over to you, Gemma.
So the next story is the Ryan Giggs storyline. Monday, what happens? You just tell me.
Well, yeah, it's your turn. Ryan's in his pants, and I'm sure that lots of viewers appreciated the fact that finally Ryan Prescott got to do a topless shot on Coronation Street. He's holding a rave for the local blue tits, according to Alia, in his pants. She catches him and says, "I found you a job, proper job. You can go and do some work at the bistro, some bar work." But he is not keen on getting a proper job, quote unquote. But he ends up relenting, and it's probably best, isn't it, to stave off Alia's eventual nagging. So he goes to go and put some clothes on, and then he goes and he fills out a job application at the Rovers later, but Daisy has got bigger plans for him. Her suggestion is to bring the pub to your garden, complete with a DJ. So it was some kind of mobile DJing thing. Is that right?
I don't really get what it was. A man stands in your garden and plays music at you and charges you money to give you beer.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't think it was a bad idea. I was a little unsure about just how tied into the Rovers it was. Was this part of the Rovers deal, or was Daisy, because she kind of called herself his manager later, didn't she?
The whole
Is it some kind of independent thing?
From him working there and doing this on the side as part of the Rovers to him having his own business.
Yeah.
And Daisy helping him.
Yeah, because we see Daisy putting the idea to Jenny later, who's not completely sure about it but decides to think about it. She's coming round to the idea later. But Alia, when she comes into the pub and hears about it, she's not particularly sure about it. And Daisy's like, no, Ryan's good. He's bound to be a success. So she's really, really bigging him up. And I don't know whether she's actually thinks that this is genuinely a brilliant idea, or whether this is all just part of her plot to give a rave for the blue tits in his pants in her bedroom, or not. So Tuesday, it was all about finding pictures that they could use to promote the business, and Ryan's there looking on his phone in the Rovers again. Alia comes into the pub and she's all excited because Debbie has allegedly said to her that Ryan can do some part-time job stuff as an assistant manager at the bistro, part-time assistant manager and also barman or something. So there you go, Ryan. You should really be doing that and not doing this silly DJ malarkey. Daisy isn't happy with the idea, And well, nor's Ryan. He doesn't. He wants to stick with this DJ. It's his passion. It's
Well,
his
the
life.
trouble is, all of these things will take place at the same time. So working in the Rovers, working in a restaurant and working as a DJ are all sort of afternoon and evening jobs.
They are the nighttime
You
entertainment.
can't really do some of them in the morning
No,
to work around it.
no. So
But Alia did try to compromise.
what did she say?
Well, by saying part-time.
Oh yeah, part time. Yeah, definitely.
But she doesn't really get it.
No.
But she's kind of right, because this is kind of a dumb idea.
Well, she calls it his hobby, doesn't she? Was that this week or last week? She referred to it as the hobby, but he doesn't appreciate that because he's a serious DJ.
Well, if he's being employed, the thing is, if he's being employed by the Rovers to do this, then it's, in fact, there's no risk involved. But he also can't profit from a success.
I guess she's also thinking about, what's your long-term goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Ryan?
Well,
are you going to provide for me and my future family?
Well, she wants to move out. She keeps saying this.
Yeah.
She wants a flat with him, and he really feels as though he's restarting his career again. Because the thing is, if he's a DJ, he can't just go back and say, oh yeah, I used to do this. He has to have a current portfolio of success.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Daisy and Ryan get an idea to how they can promote this thing properly when they twigged it. It's Simon's 18th birthday. I feel Simon got a bit shortchanged with his 18th this week. We saw him in like 2 scenes, did we? Can you believe that Simon is actually 18? I suppose we knew it was coming up this year. Maybe we even talked about it in the predictions. I don't know. But usually there's a bit more of a rites of passage, especially when a long-term character hits 18.
Well, it was also interesting because Amy and Simon are discussing their inheritance.
Oh yeah, what was that all about?
Well, it seems like Grandma Deirdre left them significant amount of money in the will, but only for the purposes of self-improvement and education.
Was that what it was? I missed what was happening there.
So they can only use it to go to university or job training or something like that.
I was wondering as well whether Simon's real mum, don't tell Leanne, Lucy, also might have left him something that matures when he becomes 18, but that didn't get brought up.
18's not old enough to be sensible.
No, not if you're Simon.
I don't even think 38's old enough to be sensible, but nobody asked my opinion on these things. Thank goodness.
Anyway, Ryan's planning this gig in Victoria Gardens, Victoria Park, as we said earlier, and he's got big plans for this. He's kind of got his deck set out where the bench is, he's got his flashing lights and everything. Simon and Amy are quite impressed by this. Yes, smoke machine. Simon's kind of says, I've not really told all my mates about this because they've got some proper party on Saturday or something. So it looks like not many people are going to turn up for it. But we didn't get to see any of this party, did we? We
the main thing that happened was the dress debacle.
Can you explain this? Because
it wasn't very good. I don't think they did this very well.
The spotty black dress debacle.
Earlier in the episode, Daisy tells Alia to get herself a nice outfit for the pictures, and she says she knows somebody in the precinct who owns an expensive dress shop, and she's pregnant or something and she needs to sell her stock. Right. So if Alia mentions Daisy's name, then she'll get a good discount on a dress. But it was all a setup because Daisy's plan was to wear the same dress as Alia, but in a more sexy way with a shorter hem.
So to get Ryan to see who wore it better, who wore it sexier.
Right, number one, Ryan wouldn't notice if they both turned up wearing paper bags. And number two, they both styled the dress in such a different way that all it looked like was they were both wearing polka dots.
Yeah. Because
Daisy wore the dress and you could see the top part. All she wore was the dress. So you could see it was an off-the-shoulder, puffy, sleeved, slinky polka dot dress with a fairly high hem. But Alia was wearing hers with a denim jacket over the top, and it had a really long hem with a split in it. So really it only looked like they had the same fabric. And polka dots is not a particularly unique design for pattern. So it just genuinely didn't look like they were wearing the same thing, which is weird because usually Coronation Street does these both wore the same outfit jokes.
And they're both
properly.
looking... Yeah.
because they both wear actually the same outfit.
Well, like you said, I think you're right that Ryan wouldn't have noticed it at all, but Alia is a fashion diva, isn't she?
Well, no, Alia's mad and she knows she did it on purpose, and she accuses Daisy of doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And she's seething about it later.
Yeah.
And Daisy's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah, she's getting worried about it to Yasmin. There's a few scenes in Speed Dial, aren't there, this week, where she's telling Yasmin that she feels like she's losing Ryan.
Daisy stops Ryan from going home with Alia because he's got to help her pack everything away.
Yeah. So Alia goes back home, has her moan to Yasmin about the dress thing. Ryan comes home and Yasmin makes a hasty exit to give the two a chance to debrief about what happened today. And Ryan's getting all these texts from Daisy, which Alia sort of really pushes her buttons, and they got a kiss at the end of it as well. Well, that was a double kiss.
No. This is the thing where he said, you know that thing where you forget to put a kiss on the end, and then you think that your text is too abrupt, so you send the kiss after. Well, that's what she's just done. And then Alia's like, "What? So she just sent you a kiss?"
Oh, I missed that. I don't know.
And then
I missed lots of things in this.
Alia's like, "You're too stupid to see Daisy's after you," and he says, "No, I'm just a great DJ."
Yes, he gets offended in her lack of faith in his DJing.
This is an English person or British person thing that other people don't do, and neither you nor I do this. But quite a lot of people in this country will finish a text message with kisses on the end, and I don't know why.
Sally Ann Matthews does that, doesn't she? It is a thing, but I know
everybody
lots
I know,
of people do it.
Like my friends from work will send me a text message like, "Just uploaded everything to the printers," and I never reply with kisses because they're for Christmas cards and birthday cards. I don't know. I just always feel like I'm overstepping a mark.
Yeah.
The same way that I would never call anyone a nickname without asking if it's okay, whereas people call me a nickname all the time.
What do they call you?
Well, Gem. I don't like it.
No, you're not a Gem, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just saying, like, the cultural context of that scene might not work in other countries if it's not common there. But here, it is fairly ubiquitous and almost kind of punctuation to just go kiss, kiss, kiss.
Yeah. Friday, then, this is when it all kicks off for real. So Alia tries to apologise to Ryan at the beginning of the episode for belittling this chosen career path that he's on. He's still very hurt by it. He tells her that he's got another DJ thing tonight that Daisy sorted. There's a warehouse. It's going to be proper banging. It's in Salford. Alia says, "Oh, I could come along to that as well." I think she wants to show that she is, committed to his DJing. She also probably wants to keep an eye on Daisy as well if she's going to go along. And she says, "Yeah, you're right. I don't trust her." But then she decides she's not going to go in the end for whatever reason. So she and Daisy have a bit of a bitch off in the street as well later, where they both kind of make fun of each other's living arrangements. And then Daisy tells Ryan later that Alia is accusing her of trying to poach him. And she's like, "I'm not though, am I?" Whilst continuing to heavily flirt, which carries on for the rest of the episode. We later find out that the gig has been cancelled in the warehouse. It's flooded or something. So Daisy manages to wangle away into being his manager and says, "Look, if you stay behind at the pub later, I've got some kind of..." They basically decide to make some cocktails together because she's
her idea is that they also sell cocktails.
Yeah.
Because she kept saying that she keeps referring to the business, and it wasn't clear immediately whether she meant the Rovers or the DJ
her little side
thing.
business.
But she's making a mobile bar and DJ company, and so she's come up with all these cocktails, and she wants to taste them and come up with names and things, and basically she just kind of makes this long list of
sexily named cocktails.
Yeah.
Some provocative, "come to bed with me, take your pants off."
Yes. And then they have this really clumsy makeup montage, which I hated.
Oh, was it? I didn't mind it.
It had the theme tune, "Two Tribes Go to War," while Daisy and Alia both put their makeup on.
Yeah.
It wasn't subtle, was it?
It was just about the right level of subtleness to me. I didn't mind it. They were cutting back and forth, didn't they? All doing themselves up beautiful to try and bag Ryan. So Daisy tries to hurry Jenny along because Jenny's got this publican meeting that she's going to tonight, and Daisy obviously wants the pub clear so that she can make the moves on Ryan. Jenny realises eventually that Daisy's got a bloke round later. She gets very excited about this and realises that she needs to make a hasty exit. Of course, she doesn't know that it's Ryan that she's got her eye on.
And says that she wants her to go to represent the female landlords of the area.
Oh, yes, the female landlords like Fanny Porker. That was so funny. The cocktails tasting begins later. It doesn't take long before Ryan's overactive bladder kicks in and he has to nip to the loo, giving Daisy the perfect opportunity to put his phone on silent, because very handily for her, Alia rings him just at that very moment. She sticks the phone on mute. And then, she hides it down the back of the sofa, doesn't she? Thus cutting off his lifeline to his beloved Alia. Doesn't take long before Brian to get proper bladdered. Did I say Brian? Ryan to get proper bladdered. Daisy seems like she's either holding her alcohol very, very well, or she's not drinking quite so much as him and is just plying him with all the hard booze.
This is all a plot, isn't it, to get him drunk?
Yeah, well, she's in control of her faculties. Daisy's kind of spinning him some line about not being liked by other guys. No, sorry, that's not right. He's not like other guys, sorry, I mean. He understands her. Girls hate her because she's so beautiful. Guys just want one thing. But you're not like that, Ryan, are you? And he's just like completely half blotto. He doesn't know what he's agreeing to at the moment. Alia comes into the pub to try and find him because she hears about this
cancellation.
Yeah, the cancellation of the gig. And Daisy's out the front at this point, isn't she? She sends her on her way.
Sean.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Alia kind of threatens Daisy, saying that girls like you always end up messing with the wrong person, and Daisy's like, "Why you?"
That was funny.
She really, Alia's fighting a losing battle here.
Yeah.
So then at the end of the episode, Ryan is given the choice by Daisy to go home to naggy Alia or have a night of passion with her, and she starts stroking his leg, or I wondered whether that was actually Ryan's mum who had been brought in to do a bit of non-socially distant
could have been Daisy's dad
touching. Maybe, who knows. But anyway, Ryan
could have just been a fake leg.
Yes, it could have been Daisy. I can't remember what the actress who plays Daisy is called.
Leg.
Yeah, rubbing a fake leg from a mannequin from the factory or something. Who knows? But things are not looking good for Ryan, or looking good, depending on your outlook on this story.
Well, it depends on how Coronation Street wants us to interpret this and how Ryan reacts as well. Because if Ryan... if this was the roles were reversed here, everyone would be saying, well, this is just a bit rapey, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because she's making it so that he is not able to consent to anything because he's drunk.
But I'm not sure whether they're playing it as that, and I certainly wasn't when I watched it. But then when we've looked online since, and there's like on the Mirror and the Sun website, there's like I can't remember how they described it, but
horror,
they make it
sexual assault.
Yeah.
And it like horrible, like really horrific.
Dark scenes. Well, when we turned it on, this episode, it said contains scenes that viewers may find upsetting, didn't they? And we were racking our brains when the end of the episode was like, where was it then? But I think it was possible. Yeah, I think it was supposed to relate to this. And are we bad people that we didn't see this as being like that, or are we just used to?
No, because the context. The thing is, if we were watching a gritty BBC drama where it had been established quite categorically that this was a terrible thing because it's a realistic world and we would be reacting to it in that way. But unfortunately, Coronation Street has got form for not taking this seriously for the past 60 years or so. So it's really not... If you watched this and you weren't horrified and thought this was dreadful, you're only doing it because you've taken cues from other times in the past where it turns out that the next morning everyone regretted it and never spoke of it again until it turned up, and then somebody splits up with their boyfriend over it,
It's also been a lot more obvious when Corrie has tackled this in the past that the person is properly nasty. Like when Tracy did it to Roy, and she put something in his drink, and that was absolutely drugging him, and he didn't know what he was doing.
And he was upset.
Yeah, he was really upset about it the next day, and she was taking advantages of this completely innocent, lovely Roy. Then we had a couple of years ago when Josh did it to David, and the direction of it, everything leading up to it was, this is bad, this is wrong here. Josh is raping David.
Yeah.
And it was widely established beforehand that this was going to be a male rape story, but with this one, it's like, does Ryan actually, maybe he does know what's happening to him here, himself
he's drunk,
here?
And if it was a girl, you wouldn't say.
No, you wouldn't, and it is totally victim blaming, isn't it?
I don't know whether Coronation Street's trying to challenge our preconceptions and say, look, you don't care when it's a girl that does it.
Maybe.
But the trouble is, we didn't see Ryan's reaction.
No.
We saw he was really drunk. And we saw that she wasn't really drunk. But we didn't see him reacting to her touching him. And we certainly are just assuming from here on that they are going to sleep together.
Yeah, he wasn't like so passed out that he was completely unwilling to...
I know, but this is where you start to say,
what's consent,
what's the line,
isn't it?
where's the line here?
Yeah.
Because, are we going to get to a situation whereby two adults who, I don't know, are married, can't have sex with each other if they're drunk because consent has not been, you know what I mean? Like, you have to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah,
but they're not in a relationship with each other. She's clearly doing this on purpose to sleep with him.
She's doing it. It was very predatory. Yeah. But was it just like, isn't she? Oh, girl, Daisy. Well, what's she like, eh?
This is the trouble. In
or
the
is
past,
it like
this
she
would have
is...
been like, wow, how sexy. She's such a minx. Lucky Ryan.
Yeah, a salacious love triangle here.
Now he's in trouble with Alia.
That's it.
Whereas now we're watching this going, well, we know more about consent and people are better educated, and you certainly would assume that Ryan and Daisy were more educated on consent than people in the past have been. So, she would understand this to be wrong, and he would, is he going to blame himself? This is the question. And if the roles were reversed, you certainly would think that this was completely unfair.
Yeah, absolutely.
The consequences for being raped as a woman can be a bit different than when it's a man, because you can't get a man pregnant. From that perspective, that's worth thinking about. But I don't know the legal definition. I don't know whether it still includes I'm sorry to say this, everybody. You might want to mute this if you've got children in the room, but I think it involves penetrating somebody with a penis.
I think it does.
I don't think that it technically counts in this country. I think it would be sexual assault.
Yeah.
But the definition of rape is different in everyone has a slightly different perception of it, because we had this conversation before when we've had previous things where people have been raped or not. I can't remember who it was. There was a big story, and
I'm not thinking of the David one.
No, that was obvious.
Yeah.
But in the past, right, like Anna and Phelan.
Yeah, definitely. That was another one, wasn't it?
I think that was probably the one I'm thinking of, where he we called that rape because she did not want to sleep with him.
Yeah. I mean, we could be reading too much into this. So for all we know, on Monday, it is just he wakes up and goes, oh.
We're only basing this off of headlines that we saw and the warning that came at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
But I just think it's a bit... I think it's a bit rich of Coronation Street if this is what we're supposed to get out of this. I feel a bit like... I don't know if they're trying to challenge preconceptions, but they are preconceptions that they have established themselves.
If they are going to go down the route of it's dark and sinister, is this the end for Daisy? And I mean...
Yeah, well, it should really be.
I still don't know. I've got no idea what the shelf life of Daisy is. All I know is that I don't think that she's a long-term... full-time character. She didn't, when they had that image for the 60th of here's our 6 most recent full-time cast members and here's our 6 most longest term ones, Daisy wasn't on there. So I think maybe she isn't going to be in it for the long haul. Could this be the end? If it is, that's a bit of a...
Bit annoying, isn't it?
Yeah,
she's just kind of getting herself...
She's just finally establishing what she's like.
But this is just a really interesting kind of exercise in, modern concepts of consent and rape and what does it mean, and how do you interpret it. Now I think some people might be listening to this going, well, don't be so ridiculous, this is just a bit of seduction, you can't rape a man, Ryan is probably up for it, blah blah. And other people will be listening to it saying, I can't even believe you're even raising the question of whether this is rape or not. Clearly is. Ryan is being preyed upon here by somebody. Just because it's a woman doesn't mean that it's any less of an assault than it would be if it was a man. And this is the thing, the question is, what does Ryan think has happened at the end of the day, and what did Daisy think she was up to?
Daisy knew exactly what she was doing. I think that
consent only exists in your head.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I think Ryan's going to wake up and assume that he consented to it. I don't think he's going to think it's rape straight away, and I think he's going to be very shifty around Alia. Alia's going to find out. Maybe she's not going to hear Daisy's. She's not going to hear the whole she plied me with drinks until she took advantage of me. She's going to hear I slept with Daisy, and she's been worried about this.
Not rightfully, but Alia might say, Ryan, you sat there and drank with her. What did you think was going to happen when I told you that she was flirting with you?
Yeah.
Which some people would say is victim blaming.
Yeah. So it's kind of it could be interesting. It's a very complicated
story, but again, it could just end up on Monday. Whoa, Jiminy Crickets! What have I done? Where's my pants?
Yeah.
I don't know, and this is the trouble with Coronation Street tackling this and being a bit ambiguous with it, because in the past we've had this story play out in both ways, where it's very sinister and dark and upsetting, or it's just a silly, frivolous love triangle, like you say.
I wonder what Jenny will say, because she's time and time again she's forgiven Daisy for being a cow, hasn't she? She's not going to. I would like to think that Jenny doesn't say, doesn't take Daisy's side and say, well, Ryan, what are you doing? Because Ryan is kind of a member of the family as well, isn't he? As being another Connor. Just about.
Very tenuous.
Is she? I wonder whether Jenny's going to catch them together, in bed the next morning, or is Ryan going to be sneaking downstairs and then Jenny's going to be at the breakfast table? Although I could see maybe Jenny going, oh, what's he doing there? Oh, blimey, I didn't know it was Ryan.
Yeah, I find this all very, very uncomfortable, because I don't like not being sure of what I'm supposed to think about something. And I also don't really like sort of acting as though anyone's opinion on it should have an impact, because really it's down to the people that are involved in it. But it really is muddying the waters, I think, here.
I'm kind of interested to see what happens next, as much as it happened.
And again, we're kind of going down dark paths for this podcast that I find very uncomfortable to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult, because I know that you can really offend people and upset people by saying something that they don't agree with on a subject as sensitive as this, especially considering how many people have experienced sexual assault or rape in their lives.
I wonder if when Jenny finds out about it, I can only assume it's going to be Monday, and she'll try and lecture Daisy about it, and Daisy will bring up the whole Uncle Ronnie thing and say, well, yeah, you're having a go at me for getting in between these two, but look, you were unfaithful. Everyone's a marriage wrecker in this street. But at the end of the day, I also would say that Daisy is currently being very hypocritical, because she was so against Johnny at the beginning of her time on the street, wasn't she, for him being unfaithful to Jenny as well.
Speaking of Johnny.
Oh yeah, speaking of Johnny, it's very sad. He's been removed from the back of the Rovers, hasn't he? All trace of Johnny. The penguins are gone. The J&J is gone. The picture of Richard Hawley on a motorbike when he is young is gone. It's nice that Jenny's been able to put more of a stamp on there, and I'm pretty sure we had to pause it and zoom in and have a little look, didn't we? On the mantelpiece, is that a picture of Jenny in her Pomme Delight outfit with Steph Barnes and the others? Was it Steph that did it? I can't remember.
This was back in the day when Jenny was first on the show.
Yeah, in the mid-80s.
They were a group of promotional girls for a sparkling cider drink, which in this country is always alcoholic unless you specify, whereas I know in America cider means just apple juice, because you guys are weird. So they would be promoting, but going around and kind of like flirting with men and getting them to buy cider.
Yeah.
And she was one of them. They had to wear Apple outfits.
Yes.
Like,
it seemed that on the
Ivy.
mantelpiece, it was a picture of them in that get-up, but I couldn't quite tell. Maybe we'll see if we get to see it.
But the question is, did people consent to being seduced by a pom
That's
delight
very
girl?
true. Very true.
I would say no, and that's probably why they don't do it anymore. But should you have a photo of it out? I don't know either. It's a very murky world that we're in these days.
It totally is. As murky as a cloudy cider. Right, Gemma, Gail away. She's actually gone. Who'd have thought? But not for long.
For how long we will not find out.
For a little while.
She's like, they're lifting the restrictions. Goodbye, I'm on a cruise. That's the actress, obviously.
That's Helen, yeah.
Gail's just going on a plane to Thailand. So on Monday, she's home from the hospital. Don't forget, she had a heart attack last week. She tells David and Nick she's still going to Thailand and she doesn't know how long for. She wants to get away from all the stress and make the most of what she's got left, and she's done enough looking after people. And do you know what I say? Good on you, Gail. Go to Thailand. Because to be honest, I don't want to be rude to you, but I don't know what you're actually doing to help anybody. You're doing a lot of ironing and cooking, but they probably should be doing that for themselves.
I'd quite like to see her start this new life, but on screen.
I would love to see her go to Thailand.
She's just avoiding the issue
before.
here, isn't she? She's so incapable of, not washing Nick's pants. That's the only way that she can avoid it is by leaving the continent, going to the other side of the world.
And she'll probably just be chasing men around trying to get their trousers off to wash them. She gets herself in trouble, ends up in a Thai jail.
Give it a good bottoming while she's there.
She'll come back with tattoos.
Well, she came back with a braid in her hair last time, didn't
This
she?
is probably as risky as she ever gets. I wonder what she eats out there as well. I mean, she doesn't strike me as an adventurous eater.
No, maybe not. Maybe she did clean for the bistro at one point, didn't she? So maybe she had a try of some of the haute cuisine that they had there. Maybe it's broadened her horizons.
My very ancient and very English Cockney grandmother went to Thailand by herself, and she just ate potatoes the whole time she was there. And she came back and she had all these pictures of school children that had adopted her when she went.
That's so funny.
She always be able to make a friend wherever she went in the world.
Is it Massaman curry? Is that the Thai curry that's got potatoes in it?
Yeah, because it means Muslim curry, and they ate beef and potatoes.
Oh, okay, but she just had potatoes.
Well, my nan
She's
just
very
had
traditional,
boiled.
as you know.
When we went, I remember we went to Italy. She used to travel a lot when she retired, and we went to Italy together. And I'm pretty sure that the restaurant we went to had mafia people in it, because at one point a load of men came in suits and everyone got really scared and started cleaning tables really laboriously. But she just, every time the waiter would come over, she'd just want boiled plain potatoes, and she didn't want anything on it, and they were really kind of offended that she didn't want garlic or rosemary or butter or salt or anything. But she was very adamant that she just wanted plain potatoes, and they eventually just kind of thought she was funny, and
I can see that Gail in a Thai bar eating a spud.
When we came in, the waiter would go, Mummy and Jennifer, because he called me Jennifer. Anyway,
what's Gail
I don't know
doing?
what Gail's going to do in Thailand, but I assume she's going to have funny hijinks.
She's going to get scammed.
Yeah, probably. Natasha and Sam bring around a get well card for Gail, and Natasha is very annoyed at having to be there because she doesn't want to be around Nick. Gail's chuffed with the card, but she tells Sam that she's going away, and Sam takes this very badly, blames Nick and also Natasha, and says it's their fault, and they're stressing Granny Gail out with all their arguing.
Is Sam really that attached to Gail? Don't know.
Depends on how many sweets she gives them. I was always, whoever gave me the most sweets, I was theirs as a child. That's why you have your evil pedo van man. That's why you have sweets in it and puppies.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, Gail is packing but having second thoughts about leaving, and maybe she's making things worse between Natasha and Nick. But David's like, just go. You should probably go for your health.
He's kind of relatively sincere when he's saying this, isn't he?
Well, yeah.
He's not saying bog off then.
No,
I think he realises that...
He's sensible enough to realise that he's having a detrimental effect on her.
Yeah, and if he wants her cleaning up
Also-
after him for a good few more years, maybe she deserves a bit of R&R.
Well, also, he's living in her house, and it's probably quite good that she goes, so he gets the place to himself.
That's very true.
Later on, Nick has this guy up because Sam and Natasha are coming round to say goodbye to Gail, and Nick says, "Tell Sam."
That's how I love him.
And she leaves, and then David and Shona make Leanne feel guilty because Nick can't see Sam, and it's kind of her fault because of the drug dealing that she was getting involved in. And she's like, "Oh yeah."
Oh, I just remembered something that we haven't talked about yet. Jane Danson listened to our character profile of Leanne last week, didn't she? That's so
she?
funny. Yeah, of course she did. She wrote a tweet. She replied to us because I put her in I tagged her in the picture saying that the episode was out, and then a couple of hours later she wrote a reply to the tweet saying that she enjoyed listening to it and sometimes
yeah,
she
she
hates
did, didn't
Leanne
she?
as well.
Like, we didn't.
We did. I don't think that was the main takeaway from that we hate Leanne. But I think she said that we agreed with most of what we said anyway, which is the most important thing. But that's so funny because we never know like who's going to be listening, and it makes you wonder. I mean, we've obviously there's a couple of members of the cast that listen regularly, but not many. So we never hold back on what we say just in case.
I imagine that some people get played. We know that some people have been played bits.
Yeah.
By other people if they don't listen all the time.
I was really chuffed to hear that Jane took, an
That's
hour
nice.
and 20 minutes out of her Saturday morning to
I know,
listen
but
to
I wonder
us
what it's
chatting
like
away
when you've played a character for so long as she's played Leanne. I wonder if she's listening to it going, "Oh yeah,
I know, I wonder.
Oh yeah, remember that story? That was stupid."
I remember when Simon hit me.
Oh
It
yeah.
was the same with Melanie Hill listened to our Kathy one a few months
that's
ago as well,
true.
didn't she?
And who was it that said they didn't want to listen? Because it was the guy who played Martin Platt. What's his name?
Sean Wilson.
He said he didn't want to. Was it him? He said he didn't want to listen because he was scared of criticism or something.
I don't remember.
Somebody said that.
Yeah, somebody did,
And you
didn't
said
they?
it's not that bad.
No, I don't remember who it was. Anyway, I digress.
That was
but
interesting.
Thank you very much, Jane, for tuning in and writing.
Yeah, she said she'd write her feedback
Come on
and
the
she
podcast for an
hasn't.
interview.
Yeah, well, why don't you ask her? So, Gail's home with Natasha, and Leanne comes round to apologise and says, well, no, she just says Nick needs to see Sam. Everything that's happened is my fault. Please. And so Natasha gives in again. What a flaky...
I know she really is. Natasha's can't. She's useless. First, she's moaning at Nick for talking to Sam, and then she has to go at Sam for running away and wanting to talk to Nick, and then she's like, "Oh, okay then."
She literally has changed her mind on this about 3 times now.
Yeah, no wonder they can't
And
decide what to stick to.
Every time she says, "Listen, these are the very serious and real issues I have with Sam hanging around with Nick. He's been kidnapped. He got shot at, and then he got shot at again.
Yeah.
These are 3
5
times
minutes later, I'll go on then.
when I have
He's his
had
dad after all.
serious worries and concerns, Nick, based on real evidence that you are not capable of looking after him. So I'm putting my foot down." And then 3 times she's gone, "Yeah, actually, no."
Well, it's not only that. It's like, right, Nick, you can't see him, but you can be homeschooled by Gail, where there's, not the... It's quite possible that Nick's going to show up at some point. If she wants to cut Sam out of his life, she needs to bloody well just do it.
Well, she's like a doctor who's like, "No more smoking for you, but pipes are okay."
Yeah. Honestly, I've got no sympathy for Natasha.
I have sympathy for her because, unfortunately, she has to keep saying it's fine because she knows she's in the show. Anyway, she's brought Sam around to stay with Nick, and then Gail gets in the taxi and waves goodbye. And this really felt like I was like, "Oh yeah, off she goes. We'll see you in a month or so." Because they've done this before. They've had really elaborate kind of send off for people that have gone for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But this felt
longer.
This felt like quite a significant goodbye, and she was looking out the window and kind of waving, and I was thinking, is this
an Emily Bishop here?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is this a big old fake out goodbye?
It can't be. When Gail leaves, there'll be a much more of a fanfare than this.
I really hope it isn't.
There's been no reports that Helen Worth has left. Of course, there's been the tabloids of character leaves the street, long-term character leaves the street. Guess who it is? Click inside to find out.
Ken.
But Oh yeah, is this just still waters all over again? Except we don't get to see it, or maybe they will do some on location shooting in Thailand.
Maybe
perhaps.
a bunch of people have been dispatched.
I am actually surprised that Gail's gone. When she threatened to leave, when was it, last week or the week before? It must have been last week. I was like, no, of course she's not going to leave. Why are people worrying about that?
She just blink and come back.
Good on her. She has left, but I don't believe for a second that she's gone for good. It's only a matter of time. But I don't care if we don't see her for a little bit. You know what I think about Gail at the moment. If she takes that time to find herself and remind herself, maybe she gets a couple of 90s Corrie DVDs and reminds herself what she used to be like, and she comes back having reverted to a former personality, I'm all for it.
This is what I've been saying about women's identity being kind of subsumed into the idea of motherhood, and where do you separate it from, and women getting frustrated because they get written off and put into a box. And Gail's kind of done that to herself, and she's got in the box and she's got the sellotape and she sealed it from the inside. And then she's like going, but I'm more than a mother, let me out. So but again, you know, if you're a mum, they're always your babies, and if they're struggling, you want to help them.
I know.
It's so frustrating.
There's a way of doing it, though, isn't she?
She just
cannot
does
cut
need
those
to
apron
go,
strings.
maybe try some drugs.
She's a sharper pair of shears.
On a Thai beach somewhere. Friday, Sam's upset at the prospect of moving to Worsley. Is that how you say it?
I don't know. I've typed something here, but whether that matches the spelling of the place that Natasha's threatening to take him to, I don't know.
It's a lovely house, she says.
Yes.
And we say, may well be, Natasha, but don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon, love.
No, because she's changed her mind by the end of the episode.
Natasha's overhears Sam trying. Why is he still being homeschooled?
I don't really know.
Because
they want an excuse to have Sam on the programme more during daytime scenes, is all I can think of.
Well, why don't they just do what Tyrone did and take the children out of school?
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about that in a minute. So he's trying to get out of doing PE, and Nick says, no, Sam, you're cute and adorable, but I'm going to make you do things that you don't like for your own personal development and for your future. And Natasha's listening going, that's the kind of man I need to parent my child. He didn't just relent, he made him do football.
Yeah, so she's deciding that at the end of the episode she is going to move away still. I did forget about that.
But Nick can see Sam more.
Nick can see him more. I like the line where Nick was trying to convince Sam that PE is important, and Sam was like, you know it's not, don't you?
I love that, because I love the way that he said that. Sam just very matter-of-factly went, you know it's not.
As a former PE dodger myself, I've applauded Sam for that line. And it was funny because Nick brought up the fact that he did PE in college as well, so that was a nice little link to the past. I appreciated it. But yes, nice.
I did like this because
as a teacher, I have to say, of course, PE is very important.
Very important. Look, I did like Nick saying, I did PE at college, and I actually find that sometimes it helps me to think, and it de-stresses me to do exercise, because I think we're all very funny and with our little jokes, and Coronation Street does this as well, where it's like, exercise is boring, nobody wants to do it, let's just watch television. But actually it is true that being healthy and exercising is good for
they like
you,
to shoehorn in
and
their
it helps your brain.
Fun run stories and the Steve bikes for charity and Tim's going to have a heart attack, so we better get his running shoes on kind of thing every now and then, don't they?
Well, everybody's going to be playing football in this country until we get out the Euro, which the next one is tomorrow. So by the time you listen to this, we could be out already.
No, this is going out tonight. Okay, so finally we had a little bit of the Alina pops a bun in the oven storyline on Monday. Not very much. Fizz has been out on the town. She's nursing a hangover first thing on Monday morning, and she's wondering how she's going to tackle the issue of the day, which is letting the girls know that Alina's up the duff. Meanwhile, Alina is dead impressed with this new pram that Tyrone has got. Fizz comes over, has a little...
She did a joke.
I know she did a joke.
Okay.
I mean, she did a joke. Fizz comes over, has a moan about him not telling Ruby and Hope yet, and she says, if you don't tell them today, she will.
Well, she says, look, you're an absolute numpty. You haven't told the girls yet, but you've told Kevin. If Kevin tells Joseph, Joseph's going to tell the girls. Also, you're standing in the street with your girlfriend and a pram.
Yeah, it's
outside of our
obvious.
house. If the girls come out, they'll see you and they'll understand what's going on. Can you just stop for 5 minutes and think out of your little
Tongues
bubble?
will waggle.
See, this is the trouble. Alina and Tyrone should be excited and enjoying the early stages of pregnancy, getting excited, having their plans, making their nursery, buying the prams and stuff. They can't because of this horrible situation that they're in, whereby it has to be a dirty little secret to start off with, because they've got to sort of break the news to people.
Well, all pregnancies have got to be a dirty little secret until the 12-week scan, haven't they?
It's not a dirty secret.
It's just
Can you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. It's just that this has been revealed before they intended it to. So now the plaster's been ripped off. He really does need to tell the girls before someone else does.
People have to say before the 12-week scan. I think it's so scary.
Bad omen. So, yeah, as you said earlier, Tyrone decides, I'm just going to take the girls out of school. I'd like to know the excuse that he gave the head teacher for taking them out of school early, because I can't think of much. I mean, I know them. One of their real mums, who they never realised existed, really, has just died. But I don't... Has he played the compassionate leave card here? I don't really know. Or has he just said that they've got a dentist appointment?
So, I don't know. You're the teacher. You tell me.
If a dad came along and said, I need to take them out of school because I need to tell them some news or something, I don't think it'd fly.
So what would they say at school?
I don't know, because I can't think any parent would be so brazen as to just try and come and take them out. I'm sure that in lots of schools up and down the country that they do, and maybe the office staff there are trained to rebuff the parents, but you're not allowed to take... It's an unauthorised absence, isn't it? Maybe Tyrone did just say they had an appointment, but really, did he have to tell them there and then?
I know, this was really stupid. This made no sense.
In Victoria Gardens?
I don't understand why the line was written that he took them out of school, because he could have just said that they had finished school. The difference would have been like an hour.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Hope's kind of curious about it. She's not particularly excited about it. Ruby's reaction is just to turn and face the wall, because maybe...
She thinks she's going to get shocked. She has to be... Yeah. She doesn't want to be the middle child.
No, I don't know. And then that's the last we see of Ruby. They're really not giving her much to do at the moment, are they? It's a bit sad, really, as... Ruby lovers here. Hope gets home later and kind of excitedly tells Fizz the news, who immediately sends Hope upstairs to remind Tyrone about all the sleepless nights that he's got coming to him, how he's going to have less time with the girls. I mean, he insists otherwise. He's saying, no, I'm going to make sure that I give just the same amount of time to the girls as I do now. And Fizz kind of scoffs at the very idea that he's going to be able to make Hope and Ruby his top priority with a baby in the house. And she also... asserts her dominance over him by saying, you're babysitting tonight because I'm going out clubbing again.
And she says, better get used to staying inside.
Yeah. Sadly, I mean, maybe the warehouse is going to get flooded, so she doesn't get the chance.
Oh.
But and that's all we get to see of this. So, I don't particularly like Fizz much this week. I think that she's lording it over Tyrone a little bit too much, but I don't think there was really much plot to get that invested in.
Well, she's just being petty, and I can relate.
Yeah, she was being very, very petty about it. No Evelyn this week,
was there? I really liked also... No, there's no Evelyn, but I really liked Hope and Ruby's reaction, and I also really liked Ruby's reaction to being told that Kirsty had died, and she's just like, I don't know, look, you people keep getting me and sitting me down and telling me stuff, and I don't care about any of it. So literally, I think we may be seeing Ruby like 3 times this year, and all of those times it's been sat down to have devastating news or big news drops on her. Because you must have been told that you were having a little brother or sister. Do you remember?
No, because I was like 3 maybe. It's a little bit different.
I remember when my uncle and aunt had their first child, and I remember sort of peering into the crib, and it was very special and exciting, but I don't remember. I obviously never got told anything about, you're having a brother or a sister, but I would think that they would be old enough to be a bit more engaged with this idea. I don't know. It was hilarious to me that they were like, whatever.
They're going through an awful lot this year, aren't they? So this is just the latest in the string of family revelations.
But I think I might have said last week about being the middle child, and I don't know, Ruby might have more struggle with it than Hope, because Hope's status as oldest child will never be challenged by anything that happens, unless Tyrone turns up a kid he never knew about.
Not unlikely,
Not
not unprecedented.
But now Ruby's not the baby anymore, and she certainly has grown up quite a lot over the last year since we've seen her last. I just wonder whether she's going to struggle with it a bit more, because she kind of seemed a bit sulky. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's tie up this discussion of the week then. What are we...
One thing that was quite funny was when Alina said to Hope, you can teach the baby all the naughty tricks. No, Alina, the naughty tricks are setting fire to trampolines.
Yeah, that's very true.
And breaking other children's arms.
Yeah, don't encourage
naughty
arson.
Tricks, no.
Do you have an idea of what you want to score this one out of 5?
I thought this was
I think I do.
Go on then.
No, I want to let you say it first.
I thought this was another kind of averagely okay week. Found bits of it boring. I found other bits of it interesting. I enjoyed talking about it. Some of it was silly, and I don't understand where they're going with it, like the whole Izzy stuff, the whole Izzy thing. But I think I will give it 3.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to give it 3 Fanny Falkers.
that was really funny. Okay, I started this week. See, the problem I had last week was not only were there bits that are a bit dull, there are also bits that really, really wound me up, like Gail with her octopus singing. And I don't think there was anything that quite wound me up that much this week. But equally, last week had some quite nice positive bits to balance it out. So the James stuff was quite, good for the soul last week. And the Jenny and Johnny scene in the Rovers on Wednesday. And I wouldn't say there was anything, as far as I can really remember this week, where I was like, oh yeah, that's a good scene, that is. I just was left feeling a bit like, okay, that's that over then by the time it had finished. So I think I might have to go lower than a 3 again, just for it being, just a bit bland and with lots of characters I didn't really like. I enjoyed the Izzy stuff, I appreciated it, but I shared some of your issues with the way that the story went. I'm going to... I don't think I dare give it a 2 after last week, so I'm going to go for 2.5 Reverend Paunchers out of 5. Character of the week wise, there's not any immediate standouts. Are you kind of going for anyone here? I'm thinking maybe...
God, I don't know, because everyone was kind of dumb this week.
Yeah.
There were no heroes. Because, someone was like, let's befriend this burglar.
Yeah. I mean, I like Todd. Does that make him character of the week? Did he do anything particularly, scene steely this week? Maybe not. Do I give it to Sarah for being accommodating of Izzy's needs and, difficult behaviour?
No, because her reaction was to lie to people and pussyfoot around something and not take charge of a situation when it's literally her job to take charge of it, to also not just to protect the rest of the business, but also to look after Izzy's best interests as well. Because I don't think it's in Izzy's best interest for her to just never confront the elephant in the room of what exactly is going on and what is your problem with this work, because as soon as they work out what the problem is, the sooner they will be able to come up with a solution.
Yeah, okay.
She wasn't taking control of the situation at all, and Carla's reaction was just kind of steamroller over everybody to try to assert her dominance.
Yeah.
So neither of them were very good, really.
Okay, I'm going to give it to Ryan. I like Ryan. He's not given up on his dream just because Alia tells him to. He's kind of fun. But I mean, it's not a definite, obvious, it's got to be him. It's just a bit of a default win for Ryan this week, I'm afraid to say. What about you?
It's really difficult because I don't really think anyone stands out to me this week about it particularly. I mean, we had some nice Jenny scenes, but she wasn't in it for really enough, and
No.
She was playing a supporting role to Daisy's story.
Absolutely. Yasmin was kind of nice, but very, very supporting.
Do I give it to Sam for slagging off PE?
Do I give it to Fergus for just being a bit odd?
Maybe I'll give it to Fergus for making a pretty good first impression.
He did make a good first impression,
He's
you're right.
intriguing.
He really, really is. And he's a bit, like I said before, he's a bit of an oddball.
Yeah,
it's
really
also
is
good
quite
of him
eccentric.
for helping Izzy, even though there is this distinct possibility he's
They
going to be
could
a crazy
evil.
nut job.
Yeah. I don't think we've really made it too clear, but he's just the neighbour that lives in the flat next door, he's
helped her when she
just
fell over.
helped her, and then just continued to bubble up with her, and for the rest of the year and a half.
Yeah.
Anyway, giving it to him.
Oh, fair play, Fergus.